are that voice crack, Jesus. We are live. Hello everyone. Gesundheit. How you doing, people watching? We're gonna cover more Drinker. Are you excited? At least it's not ice crack. That one broke us. And Jeb was allowed to not be here for that one. Fuck you, Jeb. Honestly.
You're welcome.
We're not welcome. You missed the analysis of Everything Ever All at Once, where he didn't say a single analysis thing. He just mentioned like 1,600 different philosophers. So you would have liked that, Jeb. I know you love philosophy. I don't know.
No.
Do you not like philosophy? Philosophy's fun.
I do like philosophy. I don't like when people quote it endlessly without knowing the meaning.
Well, yeah. Well, the thing is, he knew the meaning. He just kept using like 100 different philosophers who all had the same meaning for like life and meaninglessness, like kind of explaining that, right? And I'm just like, why do you keep fucking like repeating the same point? We get it. Just because it's a new philosopher doesn't mean it's a new point. You're explaining the exact same thing. It's stupid. Anyway, I just realized the stream wasn't public, but now it is.
Oh.
Was MODOK ruined? And other Quantumania questions. Oh boy. MODOK should have been the true villain. I mean, I kind of agree with that sentiment. That MODOK should have been the main villain of Quantumania. Like in Paul Rudd's pitch for Ant-Man 3, which is a smaller scale film with MODOK as the villain and AIM existing, whereas Quantumania was not that. So a little bit higher stakes. The fate of the multiverse was at stake, but not really, because at the end they win, but they also lose, and they don't actually change anything, because whatever they done, nothing, it wouldn't matter. So yeah.
You could have AIM force them to open up the quantum realm to get the mission to get MODOK out, and then yada yada yada. And the post credit scene's like Kang now has an entrance way to get out.
Sure. I mean, we'd still have the same issues that we've talked about in terms of the Kang existing in the quantum realm. But at least I guess if he'd done that, you could find an easier way to just. I mean, any way you do it, I don't understand why they did Quantumania the way they did, where Janet knew about Kang. You could have just have her not know, and not character assassinate her, you know. But anyway. Not watch the Marvel product in 8 months. It feels great, to be honest. I mean, yeah, I imagine so. We watch it to keep up with it. At least me and Jab. Zod watches it out of morbid curiosity, and Tin doesn't watch it. So that's how we do.
Yeah, because I have dignity and credibility that I want to uphold by not watching Marvel, if I'm honest.
Do you really have dignity and credibility, Tin?
No, but I'm a very good liar.
True,
and
fair.
In time, the rest of us don't, but...
Yeah. Anyway. I guess recommendation corner is in order. Tin, you go.
No.
I haven't really been watching much, but I'll pull something out that I've watched like a month.
Time to mute. There we go.
Go on, Tin.
I watched a month back, which was, I'm probably gonna butcher his name, but it was Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio film.
You didn't butcher it. That's pretty correct.
Well, I watched it around, I think it was back in January, because Zod kept on saying, "Oh, watch it," because he's my recommender now.
What?
Apparently.
How is Zod become your recommender? Zod doesn't watch anything.
No, Zod's been made to watch things recently.
I thought you needed me. Yeah. Keep up the act.
So, Zod has a friend that makes him watch shit.
Right. And anyway, yeah, I watched that because I was honestly morbidly curious, because like my only other main sort of exposure to that director is Pacific Rim and Hellboy, and I enjoy those, but those are mainly just sort of
Really? That's what you know Guillermo del Toro from?
I know about his other work, but the ones I've actually seen, like actually sat down and watched, is mainly those.
Huh.
Because
Okay.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
interesting. I did not expect that. You should watch Nightmare Alley. It's a good one.
I've heard, but like, well, I was mainly interested in this because like of the topic around it, because like everyone was saying how this is like the revitalization, the revitalization of animation, because how Guillermo del Toro was saying how like, oh, animation isn't like a separate thing, it's cinema. Like, it's basically bringing a little bit of, well, a little bit of dignity back to like how it's seen, and like the film definitely does that, because like he said like behind the scenes that he's very much inspired by the Disney film, and like it has more in common with the Disney film than it does the original story, where Jiminy Cricket fucking dies like 5 minutes into the story. He doesn't get, yeah, but like it's very different. Like out of nowhere, there's suddenly Nazis. Like that was a surprise. And like watching this, like I think this was
Jesus,
after I
Jeff.
watched
Are
Puss
you
in Boots: Lost
blowing on your mic, Jeff? Because that's overpowering like Tin's voice. Because Discord is stupid in the way it chooses which voice is coming through most.
You're welcome, Tim.
Uh-huh.
Fuck you. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, you kind of cut off the last sentence you were saying because of the blowing on the microphone.
Gee, thanks, Jeb.
What just happened?
I don't know.
No, my computer made a noise. I'm worried what that noise might be, but we're still streaming in theory, so it's fine. Go on, Tin.
So so, yeah, I watched this like right after like Puss in Boots: Last Wish, and that something that both Zod and Evan both point out is they both sort of explore like the theme of, you know, like the theme of like accepting one's death, which is like a very interesting sort of, I guess, theme that I enjoyed seeing in like stuff that's meant for kids generally. Like this, well, this is very much a dark film, but it's still very sort of deals with adult themes, which I enjoy a lot, and the animation's utterly beautiful. Like honestly, if you told me this took 5 years to animate, and like, yeah, I'd believe you. You can tell from the get go, and even the voice cast is honestly just amazing. Like, oh, for God's sake, Jeb's changing the regions.
Oh, is that what
I haven't-
the sound is?
I haven't touched anything. This isn't me.
We're in
I'd be swapped.
Singapore. Someone
How did
did.
we end up then? How did we end up in Singapore?
I don't know. I'm literally typing to Ned. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah, and then either you or Nav changed it. Either way, that was what the noise was. I was worried that like it was my computer making the noise. Anyway, Tin, go on.
Right. Then, long-winded recommendation aside, that's my recommendation, because I don't believe any of us talked about it on any of the past streams. So
Don't think so, no.
yeah, that's what I'm recommending. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio.
Woohoo, Jab, recommend.
Okay.
Before that, I need to change this to Rotterdam because it's on 2 bars. Give me a sec. There we go, Rotterdam.
Okay.
I've only been really touching one piece of media lately, and that's Breath of the Wild on the Switch, because Tears of the Kingdom comes out in May, and I wanted to go through the entire game again. I'm not really adding anything new in terms of what I'm going to say about it because enough's been said, but it really is something I think is worth buying a Switch for, or if you could get a really good emulation, Francine might know about that. It's I think there's something about it that makes it one of a kind game that only it can do, and I think it's the fact that loads of games, despite being open world in some form, you can still tell there's some linearity to it, or there's some quote unquote scripting, there's an order it wants you to go. Whereas Breath of the Wild is the first, at least I felt, I can do literally whatever the fuck I want. Aside, as soon as you're at that Great Plateau, which is your tutorial area, giving you bits and pieces, do whatever you want. You can literally leave the Great Plateau with a tree branch or whatever weapons you end up getting, and beat Ganon there and then. Like, you could do that if you wanted, or you can pay for the whole story and yada yada yada. It's a very addictive game because you start off from absolutely nothing. You are literally a blank slate of a character, and you're just trying to build yourself up in this familiar yet very alien world. It's a very different Hyrule to what we used to seeing. I guess the closest would be Twilight Princess, I'd say. Yeah, Twilight Princess, because you got like Great Hylia Bridge and such. The all the gameplay mechanics all work very well together, and they flow very well together, such as using the different runes to take on different obstacles, interact with the environment, deal with enemies like moblins, bokoblins, and yada yada yada. Yeah, I'd recommend. Jeremy, I recommend Breath of the Wild. There isn't much I could say in such a short span. I'd recommend a load of videos on it if someone wanted to know more. They don't know. Neb, shut the fuck up. Like, I haven't discovered sandbox yet. So GTA, you're expected to go from point A to point B. There's some linearity and there's some confinements. Breath of the Wild generally feels open. The biggest confinement you have is if it rains, you are very hindered in climbing, and that's all I can think of. So, yeah, I'd recommend Breath of the Wild.
So, Jab has breathed wildly. Yeah, I wanted to make a joke. That was the only thing that came to mind. So anyway, what I'm gonna recommend. Oh, fuck
I
you,
just
Jab.
want to add one final thing. I still can't believe Zod has never played Legend of Zelda, not a single one.
Why I haven't
Yeah.
either.
I
No.
don't get it. I don't get it for either of you. Not a single one.
Whoa, what do you want? I've never owned a Wii console, a Nintendo console.
Actually, Sky's more forgivable because she's Brazilian.
I
So
am Brazilian. that is
culturally, yeah. Whereas Zelda here is really, really big. And Nintendo consoles sell really well. They're the best selling
Nintendo
here.
sells so well here that they left Brazil a couple years ago because it was so expensive to build shit here. It's not a
So,
joke that actually happened. Brazil just sucks. Nintendo left.
So Zod, you don't have an excuse. You haven't even played like Ocarina of Time at the very least.
I haven't, no.
How have you not? It's like the most critically acclaimed game of all time. It generally is.
I don't know. I
You
just never
can
did.
you can emulate it. You can literally emulate it. Ask Francine.
I won't.
Francine knows everything.
It
Anyway,
does.
yeah, I haven't watched much recently. At least not anything that's good. Because recently I watched the 3 Ant-Man films and Man the same week. I was rewatching Sex Education last night, but I already recommended that. I guess I'm gonna say the Fallout, which is is it an HBO Max film? It's on HBO Max for me at least. I don't know if any in other countries it is, but it's a film with Jenna Ortega, about like how there's a school shooting at her school and her dealing with like the fallout of that in terms of like mentally. It's just an exploration of PTSD done in a very interesting way that I really appreciate. It's very, especially because of how young Jenna Ortega is. Her performance and everything is really great. HBO Max doesn't exist here. No, Neb, I'm talking about country, actual countries. England doesn't count. Anyway, yeah, The Fallout, good film. I really enjoy the how honest it is with the depiction of PTSD without like over dramatizing it. I've heard a lot of people, because I tweeted about it when I watched it. I heard a lot of people talking and replying to me, being like, "Yeah, no, like as someone who suffers with PTSD, that film was very, very, like very truthful to what the experience of PTSD is, and it tackles like a very important problem, which is the insane amount of school shootings that there are in America." Yeah, which makes the ending very poignant, which I do appreciate. It's just a really good film, and it has Jenna Ortega, so why not watch it? came out in 2021 as well, so very recent, very topical. So yeah, that's it. Watch The Fallout. Good film. Not the Fallout, as in Fallout the game. Is it Bethesda who does Fallout? What's the company that does Fallout?
Bethesda does Fallout.
It is Bethesda. Okay, okay. Yeah, so not that Fallout. Anyway, Zod, your turn.
Again, I haven't really been watching much lately. The only thing I could really talk about is something I've already recommended in past, but like because of like recent news, it's just not figure worth mentioning. Because Succession is on, but the next season is going to be its final one, which is surprising, mainly because they haven't, like, it's only now they've promoted it as such, even though it's not too long until it airs. And also, like, based on how season 3 sort of ended, it feels, I don't know, it feels a lot like there's still more, like, that could, it feels like there's still a lot that needs to be sort of covered, because there's things that have been set up since quite early on that could do like paying off. So like, having just one season, which I assume is going to be the standard number of episodes, to cover all that is not too easy. But at the same time, because Jesse Armstrong, the writer guy in charge, I read the article with him like talking about it, and he said that like he's been talking like pretty much at the end of every season, like he'd always put thought into like, is this going to be the end, or is the next one going to be the end, or whatever. But like it's only with this season that him and the rest of the writers finally like sat down and thought, yeah, this should be it. And it wasn't even like well into filming, they still like weren't like 100% committed, I suppose. Although, it's just one of those things where like it's sort of difficult to accept for yourself once you've been working on a show like that for so long.
Is that it?
Not quite.
Oh, thanks, God.
You just got very silent for a while. I was worried.
Yeah. I'm struggling.
I thought you were gonna mention Andor because you've been watching that, and it's something you've never recommended.
That's true, but I want to wait until I get to the end of that.
Okay, fair.
I've still got a fair few episodes left of that. Although, like, based on what I have seen so far, it has been like very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Succession is just like, it's one of those shows I haven't seen. I am like well overdue for a rewatch, but like it is one of those shows that I can quite happily just like watch, just like a few times, like occasionally once every like month or so, because like it's just, I just find it an easy show to watch. Yeah, it's just basically my sort of thing. Just got the sense of more sort of grounded, sort of stylish humour, but like the sharp, like witty dialogue that I enjoy, and I like just like the general premise as well. I've been just like family company, just sort of constantly grappling with the idea that the old man in charge is just like eventually he's not got much life left in him, basically, and just like just a constant back and forth between like what's going to happen with the company after he does go, and
They did get a lot of conflict out of that, considering they made already three, but 4 seasons just out of that one conflict, or whether of who the company's gonna go to. Because I'm halfway through season 2, right now, and it's still like that same, like who's it gonna go to? What's happening with the who he's gonna choose and whatnot. Just like that infighting with the family, which is really interesting.
Yeah, it's quite a basic. That's quite a basic sort of conflict, but it mostly just like shines through like what it does with characters. Yeah, like Kendall especially is like it's rather like quite sort of complicated, like character. And like it's one of those roles that takes a fair bit of a toll on the actor who plays him because Jeremy Strong is quite a what's the term again? It's just
What term? Wait, I was seeing a tweet of a bear attacking a guy, a hiker. That Madvika said, sorry, I was not paying attention. That was the one time I wasn't paying attention to what you said. What are you trying to say? What term?
Jeremy Strong. He's a particular type of actor.
Oh, method actor.
That's the one. Yeah.
Jared Leto, yo.
Yeah, for sure.
Except, better.
A little better, yes.
Yeah, just a bit, yeah. It's just like he does a fantastic job of it as well. Just the way he sort of brings Kendall to life, and because he is quite a complicated character for an actor to do. There is a lot of layers, and you can say the same about Logan as well, because Logan, it's quite easy to make him like kind of like Jesse Armstrong said it in his interview, but he's in that character that's quite easy to make into like a caricature that's like just evil for the sake of it. But like
I think all the characters in that show could have become caricatures had they not been like dealt with properly.
Yeah, it's because the writers and the actors themselves just definitely bring just like all these different layers and dimensions to them. And
yes,
yeah, I don't know, it's just one of those really interesting sort of complex shows that it's not the kind of thing you see very often, and it's one of the best shows that's still going for now. But once it's gone, then then we're going to end up with more not very good stuff. So enjoy it while it's still there.
Amen. All right. I think with that we can try to figure out what woke means. Jab, what does woke mean to you?
Oh, goody.
It means no, I can't say that.
Jesus.
Okay.
Do we want a sincere answer or like a sarcastic answer here?
I don't know. I just asked you. You do you. I can't
Oh.
control you.
It's when I watched media back in my day, and I'm talking
Back in
Ben
my
10.
day. Back when remember, Jab is 93 years old. So back in his day, back in the 40s.
We only had two colours, black and white, and they're not even colours technically. So
True.
yeah, there was no minorities invading our screens. There was no gay writing, grooming children, and yada yada yada.
For fuck's sake.
Woke has introduced all of this. Woke is like when Nazis.
Oh my
did
god.
the
Okay,
Holocaust.
we're gonna start this video. Gonna made a video called "What is Woke?" Which probably I should change the name of our stream right now because I just realized that I got the name wrong. Okay, OCD. Anyway, yeah, what is woke? That's the question we're trying to answer today. Cause the thing is, and we mentioned it the last time we covered Drinker, I think, or at least we did. We definitely did when we covered a few of these, anti-woke, anti-SJW YouTubers who were like saying, "Oh, this is so woke. This is woke trash." I think especially Gary when he was talking about Eternals. That one annoyed me because he kept calling it woke with like no reasoning for it. And so we've always wanted these people to define what woke means, and now we have a video defining it, even though it's from Drinker's like second channel, which is weird. I don't know why he wouldn't make this on his main channel. But yeah, it's woke on a white background with a fly. And I'm kind of worried that he's not going to have any visuals for this video and it's just going to be this one like frame for all of it. Because that's the thumbnail as well, and I'm like worried. Why would you make the thumbnail the first frame? So I think that's going to be the entire visual aspect of this video. Which I guess that's why he posted on his second channel. He couldn't be fucked to edit, like, even edit the lazy shit that he does in his, like, main channel content, where his visuals are extremely terrible quality. They're all stretched up, and they're all, like, random clips that don't have anything to do with the point he's making, so that's what I imagine it is.
Well, the fly represents parasite. That's what woke is, a parasite.
It is a parasite trying to invade our culture and destroy it.
I'd rather have the Nazis.
Woke. If there's one word.
Oh no, he does have visuals. Yeah, so I don't know why.
Oh, okay.
Oh well, I was wrong, chat. I'm sorry. I apologize. If TC was here, he'd call me. He'd make fun of me, but he's not. So only two kinds of people: straight, white, male, and political. I mean, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Word I could choose
Anyway.
to erase from the English language, it would probably be that. It's a word
Oh,
that I
okay.
try to avoid in my own reviews as much as possible, because just like racism and sexism, it's been overused so much over the past few years that it's basically lost all meaning and relevance.
I disagree. That's a terrible comparison. Racism and sexism lost all meaning? I definitely don't think so. Oh my god, the woke parasite invaded our call. But also, what? Tin, were you gonna say something? Did I interrupt you?
No, it's just the fact that he said that like the word itself has lost all meaning due to how overused it is, but like he doesn't use the word, but he still uses what it means. If you know what I mean, like, you know, he talks about the agenda, like that sort of thing, like. And that just bothers me how, like, says he avoids using the word, but like he's clearly still in with that lot who uses it.
No,
so-
yeah, it's like you criticize the aspects of like what woke means, but you don't use the words. It's the same thing of like criticizing a character for being a nothing character and be overpowered. Like you don't use the word Mary Sue or Gary Stu because that word is just like tiring to use, but you still like apply that same logic to it. You just don't use the word because the word carries like a lot of negative meaning. It's kind of what I get, which I think is fine. Like and that's, I don't really like using a few words in like media criticism because of that as well.
Yeah, it's like the second you say like terms like Mary Sue or like objective or like some other ones, like people have this idea in their heads of like particularly what that means and like what it's associated with, and so it just sort of detracts from the conversation and it ends up being just like,
Yeah, it kind
End
of
up-
becomes a conversation about like terms and semantics when it could just be a conversation about like the media itself. So that's
Pretty
kind of
much,
why
yeah.
you'd avoid using these words. Yeah. I'm
Which
just
is-
like sorry, you go on, Jeb.
I was going to say, which is why I don't think sexism and racism is a good comparison, because the argument is about the semantics of those terms, is about whether the things being said are actually sexist or racist, which is a completely different conversation.
Yeah, it's just confusing because like why would you compare this to sexism and racism, right? Because those words, I don't think they've lost meaning. I think some people use those words and like they don't apply, but you know, I still think they mean what they've always meant, which is like a bias or prejudice for like something like attacking someone based on their identity being related to their race or their gender, right? It's kind of the idea.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's I don't know, weird one.
It seems like every piece of online discourse about a new movie, TV show, or video game inevitably devolves into whether or not it's woke, without really understanding what that word even means and how
I'll let him finish
to
that.
measure it.
Well, one thing
So,
I'll
I
say
guess-
is that I appreciate the fact that he's saying this because, like, with the Dead Space remake and God of War Ragnarok, there were people in his chat when he was streaming me like, this game is woke, you shouldn't like it, because he was liking the game. It was just like, what? why is it woke? Are you insane? Like, Drinker is like one of the more reasonable people on this side, at least compared to the Gary types. Not that he's
It's
great either, but you know what I mean.
it's very weird because the ultimate problem with this video so far, he's saying fair points, but I'm also like, you are perpetuating the issue, much like the people that I guess try and see too much in the diversity aspects and such and hyper focus on that. He does it and addressing it in a negative way, so like Lord of the Rings of Power. Rather than talk about the actual issues, it's about the apparent politics within it.
Mhm.
And I'm
Oh,
like,
that's the thing. I remember. I think it was Sheev who tweeted like, "Oh man, Drinker's video on Andor was great." But then he devolved into like a politics, like anti-SJW thing, and like halfway through, and the video just kind of derailed. And that's the kind of thing where like maybe if you didn't focus so much on these aspects that don't really relate to like criticizing the thing you're talking about, then it wouldn't be, like this wouldn't be perpetuated as much, especially when Drinker has such a huge channel, right? He has like, I don't remember how many subs he has, but it's definitely over 1 million, maybe 2 million, and he gets like millions of views every video. So like he's definitely like helping build this narrative around the word, not the word woke, but like the sentiment around it.
and I do feel, at least with this point, it's more loaded not towards the quote unquote anti-SJW crowd, it's more to the other crowd. Because obviously that's what he covers more. He's not going to notice the anti-SJW quote unquote doing it as such because clouded bias.
Wait,
So-
wait, what do you mean? I don't think I understand your wording.
So he aligns more with the anti-SJW crowd. So a statement like this is more intended towards the SJW crowd because he notices that more than the anti-SJW doing the same behaviors.
Right.
So we could count on like one hand where he criticizes the anti-SJW, like the Dead Space remake. But we can say an infinite amount of examples on the SJW part.
Right,
So
I get
this
what you mean.
Yeah, so it feels more one-sided towards them than the other side.
This video is my own little way of drawing a line in the sand and hopefully clarifying what it actually means for something to be woke.
What is that visual? He cut you when he said woke. It's like an alien. What the fuck is that? What's happening?
So first up, how do we begin to define it? Well, it kind of depends who you ask. If you ask someone on the progressive end of the political spectrum, they'll probably tell you that being woke means demonstrating a greater awareness of the systematic injustices, oppression, and inequality of modern society.
I don't know if that's true. I mean, because, like, it's not... I guess we would be on the more progressive side, our little stream. But I don't know if we would say that. I think the word woke carries such negative connotations that I would never like apply it to like something that's positive, being like, oh, you see, it's just progressive. I'd say the way people on the anti-SJW side crowd, like the way they use the word, is just like, oh, when something is progressive, they think it's woke. Whereas woke, I would define as something like, I guess, Batwoman. Where it's just kind of like extremely trying to put a political message that doesn't really fit with the narrative of the show or something like that. Like that's what I would define woke as, I think.
So I'd say that the issue already with the term is woke technically has two meanings nowadays. If we play it in its proper form, it's not inherent to progressivism. It's just being aware that there's social injustices for anyone, predominantly minorities, but you don't have to be inherently progressive to notice that. You could be more what's the word? A traditionalist. You can see the inequalities present. Like King Charles. King Charles is a traditionalist, but he was aware of the inequalities that were present, especially on a class level. Now, the meaning that we keep seeing is obviously overt political messages without any substance or thought between within them. So it's not actually, it's pretended to be aware without actually being aware. It's like going, oh, racism exists, but it's not like, how does racism exist? What can we look for? How can we learn from it, and so on. That's how I would define the two terms in its improper use and the actual usage.
Right.
And making some effort to pass that awareness on to the audience. It's about educating people, helping them to broaden their minds and see the world from a different perspective, giving more visibility to groups that didn't get a fair shot in the past, and inspiring a greater sense of compassion and acceptance of people who happen to look or think different from you. On the other hand, if you ask someone on the opposite side, they'll tell you that it's a divisive and destructive ideology that aggressively pushes hardcore left-wing political agendas into all aspects of entertainment.
I know where he's going with this. That's not true. That I hate this. I hate this a lot. So he's obviously doing left versus right perspective on woke. Now, all he's outlined here is apparently the left know what woke actually means, and the right do not, like, at all.
Is that what he means?
Saying it. Well,
because so far he's just outlined the 2 points of view. He could take a more centrist POV after this, be like, I think both definitions are a bit wrong. I think the truth lies more in the middle. That's kind of what I assume this is going for, because, especially because the way he defined it for like the anti-SJW crowd, it kind of seems like he's going like a bit too hard on the like, it's pushing far left ideologies and ruining media and whatnot. I feel like that's like kind of extreme, and he wouldn't say it's as extreme, but maybe he would, because it is the kind of thing. It does sound like the kind of thing he talks about, but I don't know.
My issue with that is that's fundamentally untrue anyway. Like, a lot of right-wing people do not think this. It just happens to be the crowd he is around thinks this, and he's using that to form what he believes that side of the crowd, like the whole right-wing community does, which is kind of insane. Like, I'd say a lot of my family members are right-wing, and they don't think this at all. They actually agree with my definition, and I'm on the left. So, it's leading. That's the issue. You need to keep accurate if you're going to do definitions.
Demonizing anyone who happens to be straight, white, and male, undermining Western cultural values, hijacking and destroying
Western cultural values.
So this would
people say that. Sorry.
So this would apply then. That a Chinese right-wing person cannot exist. But
no, they can. They just seem that it's just that they care more about straight white males being represented than them being represented, I guess.
Well, the issue is he's including this very broad definition with many variables. So like the Western culture, they don't give a shit about the Western culture.
I mean,
they're Eastern. They care about their Eastern culture. I think they probably want the Western culture to die, to be honest.
I mean, Chinese people especially, they have a big bias against every other type of culture, that they kind of seem like it's imposing on them and whatnot because of their government kind of, what's the name? Restricting speech there in a huge way.
And then what about the Middle Eastern cultures? They are very anti-Western. So, like, this isn't a good definition at all. And if this is your baseline for your point, to go, these are the two existing definitions, it's kind of falling apart there and then.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I just find it funny. Like, oh yeah, they want to erase Western culture. It's like, what kind of culture are they erasing? Like, I guess it'd be like the American way, the traditional American family, wife, husband, son, daughter kind of thing, where it's that very traditional American thing that was created. That kind of ideology was created post World War II to kind of, impose that like beautiful view you have of America, so that they could like regrow grow as a country in those years after World War II, so they could, control the world.
And it's like there's two issues with that. One, they also like to make the argument that, hey, we already have these values that you people claiming for more woke media have,
Mhm.
which conflicts with that point. Secondly, that very notion of a quote unquote normal family idealism is constantly mocked in media anyway. Like The Simpsons, for example, became so popular because it did that very thing.
Yeah,
At
but
a
and it
time
was
where it
never
so
like
scarce.
called woke or something like until I guess a couple years ago when they said everything went woke.
Yeah, actually, no, it's always been like this. It's very poorly executed nowadays, and stuff like Lisa simping for the corporation is blatantly against her character.
Oh yeah, and it reminds me of like the Chibnall era where people are like, it went woke because woman, when like,
And if you actually look at it, it's probably the most conservative out of the three modern eras.
yep, it's
Like,
the episode where she shows for Kerblam is just the most like fuck that.
like the sort of progressive stuff done with him is very surface level, whereas you compare it to like RTD, where like he actually he made leaps and bounds with his era. All RTD is all Chibnall's really done is just. I guess with him it was like sort of like the wrong timing because like he did like the whole first female doctor thing right as this craze of people going mad over shit going woke, I guess, came up at the same time. It's
Yeah,
like,
because it was 2017, and it was like after Trump was elected that it kind of became like a huge deal that people were dealing with, which was 2016. So it was generally just poor timing. If it had happened like, I think when Capaldi's era was like, instead of us having Peter Capaldi, we had a female doctor. I think the backlash would just not have been a thing. I mean, like Missy being a thing was just, I don't, as far as I know, there wasn't that much backlash, right? For Michelle Gomez.
as far as I know, most people were like, yes, my theory was right, rather than going, they made the master a woman.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, because I used to watch, I think it's a known fact that I used to like watch these fandom menace YouTubers. I remember watching, I think it was like a stream that Nerdrotic made with Bostrak and someone else. I don't remember who it was, on the Doctor Who anniversary. And I remember them talking about how like Doctor Who went woke in the Capaldi era, in series 8. That's when Doctor Who started going woke. I think that was before series 10. No, never mind. Yeah, that was after. I started watching Nerdrotic after Jodie. But yeah, they said like series 8 is when it went woke. Series 8 is when Missy was introduced, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. I don't think I've ever made the connection. I just always found funny that he said that.
Well, I'm really. The Series 8 is where people draw the line. That's like.
Well, that's where Nerdrotic draws the line. Oh my
like,
god,
that's one
Medvika
that-
did it. Sorry. Medvika has been trying so long to say, I fucking love Critical Drinker. Holy fuck. And he has bastardized his message in chat until YouTube let it go through, and it did. No, Jeff deleted it. God damn it. No.
But yeah, Series 8 is where people draw the line. To me, that's literally one of the least woke New Who seasons that is pre-Chibnall.
Is season 8 the one that has the pro-life episode?
Yeah, that it's
Yeah.
aside from that, it's generally sort of, I guess, I don't
Apolitical?
want to say I don't want to say apolitical, but like it just sort of doesn't make any big statements or make any big
Right.
political things.
Is this series 8 that has the episode of the heist, or is it 9?
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Time heist, yeah.
Yeah, I like that episode.
Like, I'm just trying to think what's a really woke episode of that season. The closest is Christmas Horror Series 7, so no. What is really woke? Season, maybe Deep Breath. I don't know. Like, is there even a woke episode, quote unquote, by their terms?
Well, yeah, Missy is introduced, and she's a trans or something. I don't know. The pro-life episode, yeah, Naira. There's an episode that is
It's where the moon is an egg.
Yeah,
And there's a
we
movie
realized
of
that the
where
moon
the
isn't actually a moon, it's an egg that's laid by what is it? I don't remember even how to describe that
like
thing.
they have
I
like a
don't know.
debate over whether to
So-
kill it or whether to save it.
So
And they,
Yeah, and then by then it's like, no, you see, we needed to let it hatch and live life, even if it could have destroyed Earth, because it just lays another egg. So like we miss out on
And-
anything, which is not something they could have
and-
known. And the Earth losing a moon would be a huge deal.
And it's worth noting that episode is critical to the Doctor and Clara's relationship because the Doctor forces Clara to make the choice despite knowing the outcome.
Yeah, it's not a great episode. It has a great scene, but it's not a great episode.
Oh, I know what's the most woke episode. The Caretaker, because it's very anti-soldier and such.
Oh yeah, they have a really
yeah.
weird anti-soldier thing in his series 8, right? With Danny.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
it's really weird. Like I remember Clara made a joke about it, and I was like, What?"
Yeah, I don't understand what they have
Yeah.
against
yeah,
soldiers
the
in
soldiers
series 8.
stuff wasn't very well handled in
Yeah,
series 8.
it's the kind of thing where it kind of
Yeah,
lacks
yeah.
nuance, because just like soldiers themselves, especially, I don't think they're the issue. The issue is like the military exploiting those soldiers. I think the system is what's to blame, and not like the people who are like trying to help their country, because I think it's a noble cause to try to do it. Do you see there was
Especially
like
with,
a sorry, you go on, Zad.
Especially with like the cost to like their physical and mental health in the process.
Yeah, it's kind of insane, because they put a lot on the line to try to help people, and they're kind of exploited by a system that doesn't really exist to help people. It exists to benefit like the government and shit like that. Anyway, it's getting a bit political. I don't think we got derailed. I was just gonna mention. Do you see the tweet of like a video? I think it was a trans woman maybe who was like in the Ukrainian army and they lost an arm, and the guy was like mocking that person, being like, "See, this is what happens when you're trans and you go to the army. You try to help like Ukraine. It'd be super cringe or something like that." And people obviously made fun of that person for tweeting the video because like, what? That person's being super like defending a country that's being attacked. It's like, and especially because conservatives and right wing people are just very like pro military, pro patriotism of like putting your life on the line for your country. But I guess it's not. It's not fine when you're trans. That's so fucking stupid. Twitter is stupid.
Flatlines woke. Clara is trying to be the Doctor. Can't have a female in that role.
They're trying to erase the Doctor. They're trying to woman wash him.
Despite that episode being like the best of that season, it's still woke.
True. Is that the one with the TARDIS getting smaller?
Yes, with the two-dimensional.
Yeah, that episode is one of the most fun I've ever had watching Doctor Who, because Jenna Coleman pretending to be the Doctor is great. I love it. And it makes me want to have Jenna Coleman as genuinely a Doctor at some point, which won't happen, but we can dream. Johanna
was the
Constantine is close
episode.
enough, to be fair.
That was the episode where Capaldi did his speech. I was like, this guy's going to become my favorite Doctor. I can see it happening.
Woke should get a CW show. I agree, Poser. Woke is a masterpiece. Anyway, getting back to this video, we derailed the conversation for a bit.
Hijacking and destroying long-established characters and franchises, and generally chipping away at the foundations of everything that our culture's built on.
I'm sorry, but the visuals for this video generally were, again, he went on YouTube and like film compilation and he downloaded it and he put it as a visual. I'm tired, Drinker. Can you actually put relevant visuals for your videos? Fuck's sake.
So basically you've got two wildly conflicting views of the same thing, coloured by the perspectives of the people involved. And with that being the case, is it even possible to be objective about something so divisive and contentious? Well, yes, but I think this is where we have to apply a bit of something that's generally lacking in modern online discussions.
Nuance.
Nuance. See,
Yeah.
looking at this thing
I
from
support the idea, Drinker. Let's see if you can actually do it. You've not been the most nuanced person I've ever seen online.
From a neutral perspective, I think most sensible, level-headed people would probably accept two things. One, raising awareness of social, cultural, and environmental issues isn't a bad thing.
Yo, base. Oh my god, you're already like 10 steps above Nerdrotic.
20 above as.
Yeah. No,
And-
as is great though because he's in the Flash, so he's forgiven for everything he's ever done in his life.
Honestly, people really go in on Nerdrotic, and I'm like, do you even see the half the shit Az gets away with?
Yeah, I think I could just go for Nerdrotic because it's like I see him as like people take him seriously. As is such a joke in my mind that I cannot take him seriously, especially because of the Flash, because of season 8 and then the episode this week. I do not see as like a real like someone that you should listen to. I just see him as someone you should laugh at. So maybe I'm a bit biased.
Yeah, as is just insane because I mentioned before that I watched one of his Last of Us videos because studio.
Yeah. I
And one
I
of the
tuned
things-
in I tuned in the clip of him talking about the what was it? He thought it was like a diaphragm.
Oh,
Yeah, and it was
yeah.
it was fucking whatever. Sorry, you go on, Zod. I didn't want to interrupt.
Yeah, one of the things he said in that video was that he thought, well, him and his friend who's on that thing, they thought that Henry and Sam's story was supposed to be an analogy for BLM.
What?
What? BLM?
Yeah,
Were one of them like killed by like a police officer with a knee to their neck or something?
it's because like the way they have it in the show is like the Raider group has taken over Kansas City from Fedra, and Henry and Sam are on the run because Henry was a rat for Fedra, and so I guess just the idea of two black people being on the run from just people with guns is Black Lives Matter or something. I don't know.
Didn't Az say like
That's amazing.
that there was something about socialism being communism in The Last of Us? I think like
Oh yeah, he
Yeah,
said
yeah.
socialism and communism is the same thing. He thinks, but I think it's
Anyone
because
who said-
when they go to what's his face, Tommy's like the place Tommy
Jackson.
lives with his wife. What's his name? What's her name?
Jackson. Maria.
Maria. Yeah. Basically, that place is the system they use is communism, but it's obviously like a very small community, and that's why it works. I think it's even pointed out by Joel, right? That if it was like a bigger community, it wouldn't work. At least it's
Yeah,
what I
he
heard. I've
says-
not watched the episode yet.
Yeah, he says in the episode, well, they specifically mention in the episode that that community is just like a small form of communism.
Mhm.
And later on, I think Ellie asks about it, and Joel says that it wouldn't have worked in the larger United States because the country was just too big.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is a
Definitely
fair
supporting it.
assessment of communism. I feel like it's a system that cannot function in like such large scale all at once with like a centralized government. So, it's pretty nuanced, I feel. But Az really did not like that. I saw. But what did he say about like communism and socialism being the same thing? Was it about The Last of Us or was it something else? Because I
I'm not
remember
sure. I
Jab
think
making fun of it on Twitter.
what's
Yeah, I
that?
remember hearing it.
Well,
But-
as it's talking about socialism and communism being the same thing. I'm trying to remember.
Oh yeah. So I was like, that individual has no grasp of politics because communism and socialism literally cannot be the same thing, like at all. They can't.
Mm.
Then some random guy said, no, they are the same thing, and then I went, well, no, they're not. Communism is extreme left politics. Socialism is not inherent to extreme left at all.
Mhm.
There are many different ways to implement socialism. Socialism can lead to communism, however. And then he completely changed his point to, yeah, socialism always leads to communism. I was like,
What?
no, it doesn't. Like, whether people like it or not.
Oh,
New
wait.
Labour.
It was about Quantumania. That's what he was talking about. Because
Yes, yeah.
Hank
Oh, that's
Pym
right,
mentioned
yeah.
socialism because he said
Yeah.
these ads, socialism is a loaded term these days, but we could learn a lot from them. And he said this film is pro-communism.
Yeah, and I'm like, "Oh, what?" And then like I was getting into debate with that random guy, and I'm like, social doesn't always lead to communism. There are like in England, we're currently very right wing in terms of media and government, but we still have a lot of socialistic institutions. So we have the NHS, for example,
Yeah,
and
the
new
welfare in England is very left wing. Just the implementation of it in general.
so
Did Tim
so
die?
is our I have no idea, but
Okay.
so our transport systems, they're predominantly left wing in nature. Um, but there's some private elements in there, obviously. Under New Labour, the aim was a more centrist approach to socialism, so a kind of soft socialistic system, and that was working effectively until the global financial crisis, which, by the way, affected nearly every fucking country. It wasn't just a socialism thing at all. um, so yeah, to say socialism leads to communism is a fundamental misunderstanding of the differences between the two ideologies. And it's also worth noting that the guy also said the USSR was socialism, and no, they weren't. They just called themselves socialists to
Well,
get
it's the
away with
same thing as
communism.
Nazis. They called themselves National Socialism. They were not socialist.
Yeah, they went very much against the socialists. Their authoritarianism, or I've pronounced it. And I'm like, yeah, by this logic, Nazis are fucking socialism.
Yeah. Which, to be fair, a lot of right wing people say no. You see, Nazis were actually left wing. They were socialists, which is funny.
Yeah, so say as they use the Holocaust on anything that resembles not the what they consider the master race, any gay people and such. Very 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 left wing that. It's just yeah, these people I hate that they have such a platform. Obviously I believe in them having a platform, but fuck me. The issues that come with that
Mm.
are insane.
Also, Tin is trying to fix her laptop. It died, but she's coming back soon. We believe in her.
I
Anyway.
hope it
Well,
doesn't come back.
Neither
not
is
we.
encouraging people to look at the world from different perspectives, or giving historically underrepresented groups or problems a bit more visibility and attention, or trying to move beyond tired and
And the dead shit as he shows Jack Black in School of Rock. No, it's just such a funny visual because there's some like really serious films in here. There was like a shot of Hank Pym running, and then there's a shot of Jack Black in School of Rock. It's like, yeah, this is truly proving your point, Drinker. Good visuals.
damaging old stereotypes. 2. Pushing all of this stuff too hard, too aggressively, or with ill intentions is having a damaging effect on modern entertainment. Instead of encouraging people to broaden their minds and consider new perspectives, it's basically lecturing and browbeating them into thinking the way the creators want them to think, replacing one form of arrogant narrow-mindedness with a different one. Instead of elevating marginalized groups, it's dragging down, insulting and demonizing anyone else. And
I mean, yeah, I guess you have films that aren't that nuanced. I guess Men is a good example, which is a film that the entire point of it is all men are bad inherently. It's in their nature to abuse women, which is just like, maybe don't make a film that has that message. Maybe Alex Garland, but
What? Why? Does that thing that exists?
because Alex Garland hates that he's a man. He's the pick me type, He's like, oh, I know I'm a man, but I'm one of the good ones. You can trust me. That's what the film comes across as. It's so shit. I hate that film.
It sounds like Twitter, the film.
Basically, J.K. Rowling probably loves man. I mean, yeah, yeah. No, that film is fucking garbage because it's just like, Jesse Buckley goes to like a rural, like small village, like in England or Scotland. I don't actually know. I think it's England. where she like basically everyone in that village all looks the same, like they're all the same actor playing that that one man, and they all like are super creepy to her, and they like keep blaming her for like being in a shitty mental state and shit like that. And the point of the film is at the end is just like, oh yeah, it's in man's nature to abuse women and want to like use them and think that they're owed something because women are like they think women are like inherently like a sexual thing when they're just like existing, which is just like a shitty, terrible film. And so kind of like I agree with Drinker's point that there are examples of this. I used Man just as an example of like, I mean, yeah, there can be examples of this. I think they're very few and far between. I think like Batwoman, Man, like that kind of thing. So that's like very poorly thought out. That doesn't have any nuance. That's what the problem usually is when you have like these stories that feel like very beating you over the head with it. I guess what's the name of the film with Bo Burnham, that shitty one we watched?
Oh,
Promising Young Woman. Yeah,
Yeah, that's it.
that's not a problem with wokeness. It's poor writing. Yeah, it's just a failure to write any nuance into your story. I wouldn't say it's like wokeness is the issue. It's just the writer not knowing how to put up forth a message or a lesson or something that actually has like something to say. Because just saying man bad is shitty, or like don't look up, just saying like, oh yeah, people who don't, we need to do something. That's basically what that was doing. You're fucking with Winter Soldiers, just like do better. Or things that like they just fail to actually do anything meaningful with the story, and they think doing the bare minimum, just like pointing out an issue, is what what should be done. To be fair, Falcon and Winter Soldier try to deal with all of that with a bit of nuance by having the terrorists not be like terrible people all the time. Like we're supposed to empathize with the redhead, I forgot her name. But but then by the end of the show, yeah.
But then she blows the building full of civilians, saying like, "This is the only way we'll listen to them." Cause,
Yeah, it's
'cause,
the kind of thing that people make fun of like villains that have a point, but they need to like do something terrible so the hero has a reason to take them down. Not that she had a point, but you know what I mean. Like they try to make her sympathetic, but then they make her like completely irredeemable. Carly, is that her actual name? Jesus, man.
Usually trying to lazily pander to the groups themselves with unimaginative, tokenized attempts at representation. Instead of creating great stories and characters with high-minded ideas cleverly woven into the narrative, it's given us little more than socio-political indoctrination with a thin veneer of entertainment grudgingly wrapped around it. The point I'm making here is that incorporating progressive themes and ideas into entertainment is no different than incorporating traditional conservative themes and ideas. They're both just perspectives that the audience is invited to consider. But for me, the tipping point comes when those themes and ideas to be explored turn into messages to be broadcast. That's
what's the problem with a message being broadcast by media?
And isn't that kind of true either beforehand? If you're offering a different perspective, you're telling a clear message, a through line of some kind. I think every piece of media has a core identity which is its message.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, like let's face it, the Star Wars original trilogy has a very clear underpinning message across all three films.
Yeah, about like forgiveness and redemption and whatnot. It's like it has, I don't know, man. I think media always has a message. I think the issue is it's just like the lack of nuance and exploring that message, because it's like obviously the person making the film, they show you the message, you take from it whatever you want. Like if you agree with it, if you don't, just as long as it presents the message and you can reflect on it if you want. It's not like indoctrinating you. It's not like media is just gonna be like, this is the good thing, then this is the bad thing, and then it's gonna change your mind. You're gonna think about that message in whatever way you want. I think the more important thing is whether it's like a message that makes sense with what was shown throughout the media, I guess.
Someone has asked me a question. What do I think of Sonic Frontiers? I think it's... So I've always said about that game, well, not that game, but the ideas it presents is something Sonic should have done for a long time. I always felt it was the next step it had to do, and that's why I was so disappointed Sonic Forces. So as you can imagine, I am very happy with Sonic Frontiers as a game. Got jank to it. It's definitely got flaws, obviously, and again, the annoying fact is parts of it were rushed. They didn't have the staff, the usual Sega issues. But the next game and the DLC seem to be learning from those lessons. So it's a very good step in the right direction. It just needs to keep that momentum going. But back to the point Sky made to respond to that, I agree because if we take Batwoman for example, which we no fuck you for changing your PFP as me. Batwoman is telling very clear messages, very overt messages. You know what they are. Fucking nub. They're very apparent as to what it's trying to tell you, but the episode makes no sense, and a lot of the times it does actually set conflict with that message. So anyone watching it, well, majority of people watching it, they're not gonna buy into it. That's why it's so mocked. It had low
Well,
viewership.
I think a good
and
example
everything.
is the last episode of The Flash we watched, the 903, because they tried to do a message of like, oh, you see, all human life is, like valuable. You shouldn't like choose to live or die, like kind of like playing God in a sense. But like 90% of the characters in the episode try to decide who's gonna live. It's Barry who's like has a realization at like the 11th hour, being like, oh shit, yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm stupid. So like most of the episode is like going against the message he wants to, because the characters are just being stupid and not thinking about like the most like
Now,
basic thing.
if we were going to give a very good did Neb leave or no Tin left. Rip.
Jesus, 10
Oh, well.
died again.
If we were to give a good example of how messages are delivered and a clear identity is present, I'd always cite Russell T Davies as a writer. It's
Mhm.
because he finds the balance between it being overt of what's going on, but there's a lot of subtext behind it, and it really makes you think of what you witness. So, like Turn Left, for example, explores all these different issues of asylum seekers, what would happen with the lower class should crisis happen,
Well, it's
essentially.
interesting. Last night I was for absolutely no reason my brain just went to that one moment in Turn Left when Wilf mentions like the concentration camps. He's like, "Oh, I've seen this before," and I'm like, I don't know why, but it just came to mind. It was like, man, that's like such a simple. Like it doesn't last long with the way they explored that, but it establishes so much of like what is currently going on in the world and how like the government will want to like take control of, take advantage of like the power they can have if people are like panicking in a situation like what happens in Turn Left when the queen the queen dies and shit.
It's-
Also, like, I'll avoid like specifics because the studio's listening in, and I'm gonna watch it with him at some point. But also like years and years where it's just like one of the big points about how like just like complacency and not paying attention really just sort of allows things to get worse.
Yeah, there's the not to go into spells, but like there's the monologue how like grandma says it's all your fault because it's all our fault because we basically caused this. Like
Yep.
that's
A
sort of
big
thing.
speech.
It's
Is that the
Also,
one in the
like-
like the dinner table that Jeb sent
Yeah,
once?
that's it.
Oh yeah, I watched
Yeah.
that scene. Jeb told me to watch it for me to want to watch the show, which I already wanted to watch anyway. But yeah, it's a good scene.
Yeah, it's like it's like RTD as well, which he got controversy for. He was like, a lot of people are very charged with their politics and what they want to tell. They don't consider the craft and the skill of executing it. I do love tales of Sonic fan fiction, not the sex kind. Um,
Okay.
but essentially, the importance is you're not trying to force your politics onto people. You're trying to tell a story first and foremost, and have the politics weave into it.
Oh yeah, it's because like every story you write, your views are gonna seep into it in one way or another. It's inherent to writing. There are many things that are inherent to writing. Like writing is, I would say, it is autobiographical in some sense all the time. You're always talking about like, writing about your own experiences, your own feelings about those experiences, and try to put forth that like maybe through characters that aren't like exactly like you, but you know, it's always coming from your brain. You're gonna have the bias of your own experiences, and so when you write a story, especially one that's like political, like RTD often does, his politics will seep in, but that doesn't mean that he's not telling like a story first and foremost. Which is I think the most important part, which is just like being able to tell a full story, you know, characterizing the characters and everything, rather than just be like, you know, like Batwoman where no character is like an actual character, or like the Flash episode I mentioned where every character acts out of character because they want to make a point by the end of the episode, you know.
It's also, I think, a mark of a good writer who's very aware of social political issues is how much they get right when they're saying, "Oh, this is what the outcome will be if we continue down that path." And RTD has a very high success rate of seeing what happens before it actually happens.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, didn't Years
So,
and Years predict like a gazillion things?
Yeah.
like Russia invading Ukraine predicted that.
And the Queen dying.
Yeah.
Well, to
Well,
be
I
fair,
would-
she was gonna die soon, I think, regardless of whether RTD
Yeah.
predicted it or not.
On the year, like he predicted that for 2022.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
Yeah, it's very weird how often he is saying things, but the reason he's doing that is because he's aware of what currently exists and what he can develop to on, and then showcase that all the way to the extreme, which is basically what Years and Years is.
I don't remember what our original point was, but I like that we praised RTD. So
Yes.
Messages to be broadcast. That's where they start to undermine the integrity of the story and characters, making them behave in ways that don't feel natural, believable, or consistent with what we know about them.
and I think that's silly. I think good stories can do both. Tell a message and characterize the characters, and you'll still tell a full story. The problem is when you. The thing is, I don't like the word, you know, saying like, oh yeah, they're prioritizing like message or theme over story, but it's like sometimes their stories are written like based on the theme. Most of them are like you want to kind of tell like a journey for a character that ends with a certain like a message they want to put forth by the end of that arc, you know, that character goes through, and by doing that, you kind of broadcast a message, and you're not like actually like hurting the story. The story is based around that, I guess. It's I don't know, it feels weird to say like, oh yeah, if you prioritize message, it's always gonna fuck up your characters or something. It's a bit disingenuous.
Kung Fu Panda's woke.
Kung Fu Panda is woke.
Instead of interesting concepts to be explored, what you end up with are a series of restrictive and suffocating rules that intrude in almost every aspect of the narrative. And it's usually a sign that the writers care more about getting their political ideology across than
I know we keep criticizing the editor, but my god, would it be so helpful to have references?
It would,
Yeah.
but it's whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I want to know what he considers as examples of this rather than, here's a random film. Here's this random film.
than they do about actually telling a good story. The tipping point is the point at which the importance of the messaging outweighs the importance of the story, and a piece of entertainment becomes, for lack of a better word, woke. But if that's the case, then how exactly do we define where that tipping point is? Well, this is where a bit of nuance and common sense has to come into play. And yeah, maybe a drunken arsehole from Scotland isn't your best guide for this kind of stuff, but unfortunately, I'm the only person available to me right now, so here we go. As our first little example, let's consider the theme of representation. We live in a diverse world where you can walk down the average street in any big city, and you'll likely see people of every race, colour and creed passing you by, so naturally it makes sense.
Actually, Drinker, that's very inaccurate. Very bigoted of you to assume that.
I mean, I live in Brazil. I see a lot of varied people, like 50, or I think over 50% of Brazil is black, so, yeah.
Like, if you're in Japan, for example, that's very much, it's not an ethno state, but it's got very low immigration rates,
Mm-hmm. If
especially
you're
if
walking
you're
around in Japan, you see PewDiePie, Jab, so I think you're wrong.
you're very truthfully, you're very unlikely to find someone that's BIPOC essentially.
Mhm.
Very unlikely.
Oh yeah, definitely. Asian countries, they have, well, Asian countries, China and Japan mostly, they have a very big racism problem.
That kind of diversity should be represented in our entertainment. If, for example, you're writing a story set in modern day New York or London or Paris, then it makes absolute sense to have a diverse cast that reflects the diversity of those places. In short, diversity as a simple concept is not woke. On the other hand, if
I
your story
agree.
happens to be set in medieval England and you try to work in that same level of modern day metropolitan
Yeah, but it's there's one thing, because
Eh.
when you showed medieval England, you showed Lord of the Rings. But it's like a fantasy world. That you can't apply that same standard though, because the fantasy world having like it's, you know, it's not like the actual history of our world that we had in like whatever 1500s or, you know, around that time, that it was very racist. In fantasy world, you can have like whatever changes you want because it's extremely different from our world. Like they have dragons. Is that fucking inaccurate to history?
An example I can think of, which was recently, was House of the Dragon, because a major deviation was a House Valerion, which is from Valyria, which, you know, as you know, pale white, purple eyes, white hair is in House of the Dragon. They made them black,
Mm-hmm.
which everyone said, oh, they're making them woke, even though the author has said, yeah, it's fine. Like, they totally could have been. They totally could have been black. It's totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
So, like,
Yeah.
and even the people who, even in this fundamental said, it's fine.
Well, they conceded that it was fine because they wanted a House of the Dragon to be the cool show because they were fighting against Rings of Power that was coming out at the same time, and that was the woke show. Because they realized that going against House of the Dragon fans would be hard considering how good that show was. I mean, I know I am assuming like their motives for it, but it does seem pretty clear because they wanted to hate House of the Dragon so much before it came out, but when it came out and it was so popular, they were like, no, this is the good show. Rings of Power is the cringe show.
Even in when the first episode came out, because like it has like a scene which involves like a pretty nasty birthing sequence and a lot about like sort of women's rights in a medieval world, and like everyone was saying, oh, it's woke because it focuses on women's issues and they've made the Valerians black, and it's like, and the very next episode they're like, oh yeah, it's really good, it's really good, it's really good. So like, I don't really buy the whole like, oh, it has to adhere to medieval standards because like.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fictional world. You can do whatever the hell you want. Like with Lord of the Rings, for example, great big demons or great big towers with eyes on them don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Is a black hobbit really that much of a stretch?
Yeah, they had the BIPOC hobbits and there's a black elf as well. I don't remember if there was much more. I watched 3 episodes of that show and I've not gotten back to it, so I'm not entirely sure.
Truthfully, I think a better example would be stuff like World War II, World One, I guess, because that's less fantasy. People tend to try and
Stay
replicate.
more truthful, yeah.
Yeah, they try to put elements of truth in it to.
Oh yeah, it's
immerse
because you're
people.
telling a story based on real events. When you're telling like a story like Lord of the Rings or something, nothing about it is real. It's about magic and dragons and you know, like powerful rings and shit. It's like, okay, you don't need to take like, you know, you can take some liberties about like what in the real world in that time would be like seen as like, oh yeah, no, this diversity could never happen in that time. You know, if you're telling a story about, you know, that period, you know, like they made recently a film Emily, which is about Emily Bronte, the writer, obviously set where she lived, and it's the kind of thing where like, yeah, that film would not, because of the time, it would not have many, you know, people who aren't white. That's fine. That's based on a true story. It's not Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, so ultimately, as we've said, it's all contextual.
Mhm.
Depends on the story you're trying to tell.
Yeah. Yeah, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 7, they deal with the racism of the past. Because a few of the characters racism and sexism, because a few of the characters in, you know, who are the agents of Shield, they're not white, they're not men, and they have to deal with that as a way to still get around to like not a changing time, which I think is a cool concept for a conflict throughout the season, to have to deal with that and not like let it affect you because a larger mission is important.
Meanwhile, Doctor Who is very fast and loose when it wants to deal with it and when it doesn't.
Mm.
Yeah, and
Yeah, the
there's
Shakespeare
infamous
code that
quotes
has the infamous
Shakespeare
line.
code, and you know,
Yeah.
walk around like you own the place, which
It's a weird line.
Mm,
I don't think
hate
that
it.
episode's bad, but that was a
It's
weird
not a
line.
bad episode by any means. It's not like a really that great episode, but it's not this awfully racist episode that everyone says it is. Like it has one.
Oh yeah,
really
people hate
iffy-
that episode because the writer is transphobic, right? Which I think fair, but like I think that's kind of a bias against it because the episode itself is
And
not.
people use the JK line and like you can't use that. That's like
Yeah, that was
like hindsight,
yeah, it
right?
was like
That's hindsight bias.
2006, right? They couldn't have known.
Yeah, this came out like when the books were still coming out.
Yeah.
I
Anyway,
also think,
Oh.
despite that line being optically weird, it's very clear to state that the Doctor isn't quite aware of what Marv is getting at, because he's looking at it from a perspective he's an alien, but problem is he looks like a white male.
mhm. Which is something I'm super looking forward to with dealing with Ncuti Gatwa being the Doctor with like racism and shit. That'll be fun. Not to see racism, but to see like a character, but you see the Doctor as a character actually have to explore what it is to not be white. They already tried to explore not. Holy shit! What a go! They tried to explore him not being a male, but the issue was that they did not do that well. Is the Witch Finders? Is that the name of the
Yeah.
episode?
Yeah, Witchfinders.
Where they tried to drown her or something, and it's like
Yeah, it's like, oh, you wouldn't have said that if I was a man. It's like, okay, is that the extent of how you're gonna deal with this? Chibnall.
that and all the jokes about how I never did this when I was a man. Like that's
Mhm.
literally all you did.
And she held her breath for a long time, and that's how she lived.
Yes,
She did it because she was a woman.
yes, women can breathe more than men. I agree. That's factual. Anyway.
Metropolitan diversity, then you're probably going to run into problems because your story no longer reflects the reality of the place it sets. You're trying to bend reality around what you wish it could be rather than what it is, and people can see through that pretty
hate the
quickly.
editing.
It's the same deal if your story happens to be set in a small town in modern day Norway, or Russia, or the Shetland Islands. Isolated places where the population is like 99% white.
Yes, but there could be like places where black communities exist in those places, right?
What are your references, Drinker? I'm not denying it. I just want references. You've made this assumption, and I know you have.
Yeah, I mean, I know, like,
Shetland-
especially places like Norway, Finland, those places are like mostly white, but I think it's like I'm sure there are black communities in those countries, right? Like
Black
certain, like I think
community.
every country has like some sort of like black community, like a place where like there's mostly black people because they feel safer living around like other black people, just because that's how these communities work because of how persecuted and oppressed certain groups are, which is why you usually see people or certain like affiliations, that's not the right word, but like of certain oppressed groups like living in the same place usually, like a lot of the time. Like if you go to like Toronto, for example, there's like places with a lot of LGBT people like living in the same like blocks, corners, because of that.
Okay, so I'm just going to get the demographic of Norway because I'm very interested in how accurate we're going to be here. Where is it?
Where is it?
Ethnicity.
ordinary citizen.
That doesn't tell me much.
So he did give it to an ordinary citizen.
Okay, so 14% of Norway, of the immigrants, 40% of the total immigrants are African. According to this, 75.49% of all of Norway are native to Norway. So 14% of that 25%, that's not 1%, obviously.
Yeah, but like still like 25% are not from Norway. So that kind of already proves like there's like a quarter of the people you'd meet already like be more diverse than just, you know, Norwich.
Percentage of black people in Russia. This is probably I'm going to assume this is less because of how Russia is.
Yeah.
Ethnicity in Russia percentage. Let's try that. So 71.1% are ethnic to Russia, apparently. So let's get the rest of this. This one might be harder to generally get because again, it's fucking Russia. Yeah, this one's. Russia is a multinational state. 71.1% are ethnic Russians. 60.7% of the population were ethnic minorities, but 11.6% did not state an ethnicity. So we can't even conclude anything there.
Fun.
Useful.
Shetland Islands, I expect to be 99% white, truthfully, because they're just a small island. Yeah, literally 97% white, 2.2% Asian, less than 1% of any other ethnic group.
Mm.
So I wouldn't cite large countries like Russia and fucking Norway. I wouldn't cite those type of things.
Well, I think it's just the kind of thing where, like, if you want to tell a story in one of those countries with black people, it's not like black people don't exist in those countries. Like, yeah, large majority is white, but are you telling me you can't tell a story about, like, the black community in Norway? I'm pretty sure there's, like, a lot of stuff they've gone through that could be interesting to write. Being in a place that's so, like, majorly white, I think that could be an interesting story.
Yeah, try. Like, if you were to be accurate, you would have the apartheid genocides and such in African countries and how they came to Norway and the struggles of trying to build a life in Norway in what is to them a foreign nation, and they form their own community.
Which is just a really interesting concept, I think, for a film that could be done. So, but I guess that would be bad because it's Norway and it would have black people, according to Drinker.
Ultimately, I think Drinker's quite limited on his creativity and too hell-bent on what he finds is arbitrary to reality.
Yeah, I think it's already lacking nuance. It's which is
Yeah.
funny because he's trying to add nuance to the conversation.
It just sadly bothers me that like would if out of all the things to really take you out of a story, there being some black people in a story set in Norway being the thing that really takes you out of it instead of like the writing or something is just it just strikes me as odd. Like that's the thing you focus on.
And it also proves a wider point. And again, people just go, well, this is clearly a white majority nation. That means there's very, very few black people. And it's like, no, you can't base your own outdated assumptions on that. I think multiculturalism is an ever-growing thing because of easier transport, improvement of people of colors, communities. There's not as much poverty nowadays because racism institutionally is reducing, so they're not targeted to be poor and such deliberately. That still exists, by the way, just is reduced from what it was, and so on. A lot of things have changed.
Inherently good or a bad thing, it's just the reality of living in those places, and if you try to misrepresent them to fit with a preconceived notion that every single place and time has to be as diverse as downtown Los Angeles, then you're setting yourself up for a fall. The BBC's particularly bad for this kind of thing, where their diversity and inclusion quotas get applied to absolutely everything they make, regardless of whether or not it makes a lick of sense.
I love when people mention that because, what was it? Was Mr. Tardis that made the video responding to Bo's track, being like, did you actually read the diversity and inclusion quotas? Because then he goes and reads it and it's like, it's not what you're saying it is. I think that's what it was. Because like people clearly don't know what those quotas actually are. And when you read it, it's not like that accurate to what they're complaining about.
Yeah, do you really expect these people to read?
That's true. They don't know how to read.
Okay, I'm just trying to find the quotas that's not transformed to be whatever fucking story it wants to be. For both sides, I don't care. Where is it?
Where is it?
This is the closest. I hate to use Variety. It's the only one currently, and it's got hard stats. So, they're after a 50-50 project. By the sounds of it. Wait, they might have the original source. Nope, that's just all their BBC articles. For fuck's sake. So, the BBC have a 50-50-12 initiative. It's actually the workforce. It's not you need 50% of black people on screen or yada yada yada. You just need a workforce of 50% women, 20% of minority ethnicities. That's in relation to our country, so non-white, non-British, and 12% disabled employees. Now, these could be lead roles. These could be directors, writers, set designers, whatever. As long as they have those people in there.
I found the file, PDF file, from the actual
yes, that
BBC.
might-
Do you want me to send it to
Yes,
you?
link that.
Okay. It's
Yes,
from the actual BBC
that's
website.
what I was looking for.
Yeah, it's the document. Yeah.
Okay, there's so many pages, but there should be the 50-50-12.
It's 41
Yes.
pages, but
Found it.
Yeah.
So yeah, they state the 50-50-12, what they're aiming for. So gender 50%, so they want equal men and women. 20%, as I said, 12% diversity. So INS estimates the UK population is 2.6 LGBTQ plus. BBC has 8.9% of their staff, and there's still many people that prefer not to say their gender, sexuality, and such. They want to commit to increasing the LGBTQ plus staff that are open about the identity to at least 50%. This does not mean they want 50% of their total staff to be that. They want 50% of all that community to be open and feel comfortable in that. So that's a different thing. So clearly here, we're not seeing what Drinker claims where they
it
need
just
to
seems
show.
to be to make the workplace more like a safer place to like minorities, rather than being a thing where like you need to like have, you know, like certain amount of black people in a Doctor Who episode or something, you know.
Yeah, it's nothing like that. It's nothing to do with them actually appearing on the show. Obviously, it's a bigger deal if they do, because a starring role like Shooty Galwood, for example, that's a huge statement,
Yeah.
obviously. Now, the reason for this, for people that don't know, is let's use an example, Doctor Who again. Verity Lambert and what was his name? The original director for Doctor Who.
Cindy Newman. Yeah.
No, not Sidney Newman.
Yeah.
That's the director general. The director of Doctor Who itself. What's his name? He was Indian and he is Indian and gay. What's his name?
He was Indian and now he's Indian and gay. So he never
Yeah.
stopped being Indian. That's
He was
good.
played by Sacha Dhawan in the.
Yeah. Waris Hussein. Sorry if I butcher that. But so Verity Lambert and Waris Hussein had a lot of hurdles to overcome because of their ethnicity and gender and such, and they were looked down upon, especially Verity Lambert because she was a young woman in this role. And she had to many times fight her corner for Doctor Who and prove herself, and even then she had doubts by people. Now the point the BBC currently doing this is to reduce that, so people don't feel threatened by their ideas. They can feel outspoken as such. And it's reflecting changing time for Britain, where it's becoming more multicultural. So this isn't at all what Drinker is painting it as. This is how someone who hasn't actually read what it meant is saying it as. Remember, most of BBC shows, presenters and such, are still majority white, if you actually look at them.
Oh yeah, definitely.
There's some huge shows that feature non-white, obviously. There was one with, what's her name? It's Michaela Cole something, I can't remember her name. Exactly, but she had a huge show. What's her name? Is it Michaela Cole? Yeah, it is Michaela Cole. Yeah, she had a huge show. She's everywhere right now. She's rumored to be the next Doctor. And it's about bringing more of them, essentially. Just more of this talent, more different views.
Yeah, I was gonna say just like different voices, right?
Yeah, because that's the point of BBC. It's a voice for all, not just a voice for a crowd. BBC almost died originally because it tried to stay to traditionalism,
Mm.
and then during the late 90s, it kind of evolved a bit more.
Mm.
But yeah,
Or how about female characters? I mean, historically, women haven't been all that well represented in movies, TV, and video games. Yeah, there's definitely been examples of awesome female characters from almost every decade of entertainment, but there's also been plenty of lazy stereotypes of overly emotional damsels in distress, incompetent, empty-headed bimbos, and
Wait, what? That's from Bly. Right? It's
This-
Rebecca. What? When she... What? Okay, sorry. I know his visuals have nothing to do with what he's saying. He just, like, went female characters on YouTube and, you know, downloaded that video and is using as visual. But, like, fuck off. Why... Whatever. But you say Rebecca is, like, a damsel in distress, when the entire thing is that she's her own, like, woman who's fighting against... Like, why she would really want to have her own agency that Peter Quint is trying to take away from her. Which is something that Hannah tries to help her with. That obviously Hannah doesn't have the full picture. Anyway, Bly's good. That's what I'm trying to say. God damn it.
overly sexualized fantasy figures. Needless to say, those ideas are dated and unrealistic.
Her. Don't use her. She... The film Her, not her as in, like, this character. It's because her character, she has one scene in Her, because it's the scene where she finally gets Theodore to sign the divorce papers, and it's such a phenomenal scene. Jab, I don't think you've seen Her, right?
not yet.
So I think only Tin has, right? I don't remember. I think I showed it only to Tin. I don't remember if I watched it with Zod.
No.
We watched it together.
Yeah, so it was you and I, Tin. So, do you remember this scene? Because it's so good. Because it,
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah.
yeah, because it's characterizing shit, I forgot her name, but Rooney Mara, her character, with like why she wanted to divorce Theodore, in a way that shows like that she had an issue of Theodore not listening to her and not like allowing her to like express herself in her ways. I guess that he always kind of saw the relationship from his perspective, and that he wasn't willing to like sacrifice his own like shit, I'm trying to find the word, but basically that he couldn't like commit to like an emotional relationship, and things got hard at a certain point in the relationship, and he didn't want to deal with it, and it showed that like she was ready to deal with it, but he wasn't. It kind of shows her like as a way more well-rounded character than like most women, and she has one scene in the film. Most women in film, sorry, not most women in general. I think women are well characterized IRL, I feel. But yeah, this film is also good.
And the thing is, recent decades have seen a change in those attitudes, with
Oh, he's using... Okay. Well, that's stupid, because he cut to that while he was still shitting on it, but, you know, Her, it was a visual when he said it's changed, so that's good.
more and more stories presenting women as strong, capable, empowered, and complex. Great stuff, and a well-deserved rebalancing of the scales. In short, having strong female characters in your stories isn't
Strong female characters, he says, is puts the woman being sexualized. American Beauty is also a weird one, because the entire point of the film is how Kevin Spacey sexualizing like his daughter's friend, like from her high school, who's like 17, and he has like all these urges about her, but it's all because he's kind of lacking any kind of like excitement in his own world, and then he realizes and finds like solace at the end of like in like loving his family, which he was failing to do because he felt like he deserved more. He deserved to be a manly man who gets a lot of women, like young women. So this is a weird one.
Film would be a lot more realistic if she was a boy.
Oh no. To be fair, that film has aged really weirdly considering Kevin Spacey is the lead, and he's dating a 17-year-old. Well, he's trying to date a 17-year-old. So yeah.
woke. Unfortunately, the problems began around 5 or 6 years ago when a
He just faded into a photo of Harvey Weinstein. That was so funny. That feels like a shit post, you know, in a meme, but it just fades an image. Oh man.
I'm not looking forward to where this is going.
certain executive named Harvey and all of his misdeeds came to light. And from then on, the reaction from Hollywood was basically panicked overcompensation. Women couldn't just be strong and smart anymore, they had to literally be the strongest and smartest people in every situation.
That's
Okay.
untrue.
I don't think Harvey Weinstein raping and such and getting caught out was the causality for women being the strongest they can be.
Wait, when did
I'm
Harvey Weinstein get accused?
outed.
Yeah.
Like Jerry, I don't think that's the causality. There is no causality there.
Accusations timeline. There we go. We love Google.
October 2017.
2017. All right. So it's around the Trump era as well.
But the problem is, they say this stuff happened either before then, like The Force Awakens.
Yeah, I was gonna say like
Oh
with
yeah,
the
they have a problem with Ray.
Harry Sue, all that stuff, like all those talking points were happening like years before the Me Too stuff ever happened.
Yeah, that was 2 years before the Harvey Weinstein shit. I mean, even TLJ, right? That was the year that happened. They obviously wrote and shot and edited that film before. So I don't think
Yeah.
TLJ would even apply with it.
No, it wouldn't. And like, I don't get it. Drink. Why are you comparing? Why are you saying this is a causality? This is very bad optically.
Yeah, this is really weird. I mean, I understand the idea of like, I guess, you know, the pendulum swinging like from one side largely to the next because of like a big inciting incident, which is Harvey Weinstein. But it's like, I think saying he's the cause of that is really strange. Because like, wasn't Captain Marvel the film planned like ages before?
Yeah, this is the thing. A lot of films are planned.
If I remember correctly, like that was announced like back a short while before Age of Ultron came out, when like they announced all the slates like leading up to
Uh-huh.
Infinity War, and that was like
Let me have a look.
late 2014,
Right.
early 2015.
Okay.
That's
So-
so weird.
By May 2013, they had produced a script for a film featuring Miss Marvel, and then it was used by Carol Danvers took the mantle of Captain Marvel. Let's just keep reading down. They were going to have a female-driven superhero film this whole time, and Captain Marvel was one of the candidates. In August 2014, Feige stated that development had begun on the film. It would be the first female-led film. In October 2014, he announced that. It was given a release date of July 6, 2018. 2015, they pushed the release date back. Tin is right that Captain Marvel has links to Age of Ultron. She was actually going to appear in an early draft.
Yeah, she was
Yeah.
going to the end and like during the whole Avengers Assemble scene, like she was going to show up as like one of the last cameos of the film.
Which would have been way better than what actually happened with the planning of the MCU, but whatever.
Yeah,
Can't believe
I'm looking
ECUM turned woke, unsubbing. God damn, no.
like I'm looking at this, and
Oh, hey, TC.
they had written pretty much the entire script, and by I think let me have a look at this. Where does it say? It just said script treatment.
I know there was like people in this crowd who also like shit on Ragnarok because they like Valkyrie is the competent one and she's a woman, and Thor is the incompetent one because he's a man, even though that's like untrue. Valkyrie is a fucking alcoholic who doesn't want to do anything for most of the film. But whatever. That was 2017. That's kind of my point. It came out before Harvey Weinstein was accused of
But yeah, it says Feige expected director to be announced by the end of 2016. However, Perlman and Leval, or however you pronounce it, turned in a script treatment around December, pushing additional meetings with director candidates into early 2017. So they're already redrafting in December 2016, a whole 10 months before Harvey Weinstein's outed.
Yeah, that's so weird. Why would you pin all this on Harvey Weinstein? It's such a like it's trying to find a reason for it rather than just progressivism like becoming more prevalent, I guess, in media, of like wanting to see more female voices and shit like that, which is just like it's gradual. It happened for a long time.
It was just sort of thing that happened in the 2010s, that like gradually there was more and more female-led projects. Like
Yeah.
it's just it was happened for all happened even at the start of the 2010s, let alone when Harvey was outed.
Yeah.
Let's look
So
at Black Widow when that started writing. So Black Widow, in terms of what it focused on, was a causation of the Me Too movement. Johanna
mean, yeah,
wants
that
the
film
film.
was definitely about Me Too.
Pretty obvious. Like,
Yeah.
Draco was pretty much just your bog standard abusive misogynist.
But it's worth noting it was only because the Me Too movement at the time was so fucking prevalent. It was everywhere.
Mm.
Because when they were discussing it, it was as soon as Weinstein got outed.
Pepper Potts own Stark Industries in Armen 2. Armen 2 is woke. Yes. You're just thinking that all
Yeah.
these women who watch rights just came out of nowhere, like some Pokemon coming out of grass to surprise you. Yes.
But I'd like Drinker to. This is the problem with Drinker. He keeps doing blanket statements. I'd like him to actually do this research and be like, here are all these examples here, and they all coincide.
But it's also the
And-
kind of thing where I think you would have, like, even the kind of research you need to do, it would kind of prove that there's a lot, like it's just a gradual trend. You wouldn't be able to pick, like, an actual point where it starts, like he's trying, right? Because, like, you can't say, oh, this is when it started. I think it's just, like, if you see, like, early 2000s to 2010s, it's already rising, 2010s to, like, 2020. Obviously, that was very, getting way more prevalent as, like, just female voices were like, the general audiences were more willing to hear, like, female voices in film. Like, there's a reason why Little Women did so well. And you know, films like Marriage Story, which obviously, you know, written and directed by a white man, but like a story that focuses so much on like both sides of a, you know, a conversation about that. Like, I think it's just like the cultural thing of like willing to hear more and see more about like from like a more female perspective on a film.
If I had to put a window on it, I'd say 05 to 08 was where the balls started rolling. 09 you started seeing it go faster, and then 2010s is when it just took off essentially. It just took its natural course, and we're seeing it expand further and further because that coincides when same-sex marriage becomes more legalized, when women's rights improve even more. We're starting to see the changes take effect in long term. So that's why I think around then it's probably fair.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like when the idea of like there were rights that were like that these, you know, certain minorities didn't have, and that after a while when they started having them, it just became more like acceptable for general like straight white cis people being like, oh, okay, like these people are just part of our community. It's more, you know, they're more willing to maybe tolerate isn't the right word, but yeah, kind of like tolerate, I guess.
Yeah.
Also, someone's asking about woke meta. I have no idea what you're saying. If you could explain what you mean by that. I'm guessing by Drinker's logic, Harvey Weinstein also jump-started the popularity of abortion. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get the point of pointing out Harvey Weinstein.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around that statement right there. Just what?
Yeah, they arrested a rapist, and that means that now women need to be strong. There's
It's like-
definitely a line between causation and effect there.
Yeah, Arcane, for example, is famous for doing such thing. It was heavily influenced by Weinstein getting arrested.
Yes, true.
Situation. They couldn't just hold their own against men, they had to dominate them physically and intellectually. They couldn't just be determined and resilient.
Handmaiden, that's an interesting film for you to choose. Anyway. I mean, TV show? My bad. I still have no idea what you mean, Joshua.
What do you like? What TV show? I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
If you clarify, that'd be great.
Is that a show called Woke Meta? Is that it?
Yeah. Let me have a look. It might be, and we're just not getting it.
Maybe.
Woke Matter. No, there's nothing's coming up with that. So we'll wait for clarification.
Yeah.
They had to be cold, callous, condescending, and closed off. They couldn't work hard to overcome flaws and weaknesses because they weren't allowed to have any in the
I mean, you're saying I need examples because I disagree. There's so many examples of women being so well characterized. I mean, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. 2013 to 2020. It has some of the best female characters in fiction. I love Daisy and May and Yo-Yo and Gemma Simmons so much. Bobby. Man, that show is good.
first place, and so they stopped learning and growing as characters. Not only were they no longer objectified, but even the barest hint of sensuality had to be mercilessly stamped down and
Oh yeah, so true, man. Women are not sexualized at all in media anymore. Oh, yeah. It's not like Black Widow had like a tracking shot of Natasha's ass when she's walking in her trailer. Like, I'm sorry.
Also-
Women are still very sexualized. What are you talking about?
Also, if we are gonna bring examples again, Agents of Shield has many moments where it sexualizes, for example, Daisy, but it
Oh, yeah,
does it for story reasons and the character reasons.
Oh
So
yeah, I don't think it's like sexualizing in a way that feels like dirty or
Objective.
something. Yeah, like not objectifying. It feels more empowering, I guess. Where it feels like the
What-
character's embracing their sexuality rather than something like that. Because, you know, a lot of times you have characters who, you know, female characters who seduce men to get what they want, because it's a spy show. That's just what you do. Bobby does that a lot. May does that a lot, actually. And I feel like it does it in a way that's like definitely not undermining, like objectifying them.
I'm still not fully comprehending what you
Yeah,
mean.
woke show and
Joe.
movie, they're no woke meta. I mean, like, entertainment. What?
If you mean- If you mean what are
What
thoughts?
is the woke meta? Like, what is it?
No, he's saying it's not
No,
woke
no.
meta. Forget the word meta.
Ignore that.
Yeah.
But anyway,
uh,
if you mean like
what we think about
woke-
woke stuff, like woke movies and TV shows, I mean, that's kind of interesting. We've been talking about this stream, so I don't know.
We've been doing that for almost 2 hours now. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
If
maybe
you-
if you want to rewind and get like our thoughts from the beginning of the video, I don't know. Guys, I don't know how to summarize it better than what we've already said for 2 hours, basically.
if you want to TLDR, I don't like the term woke.
Mhm.
I don't think you can actually measure the term woke without causing issues for anyone.
Mhm.
I think a lot of media does it excellently, a lot of media does it poorly, just like with fucking anything.
Yeah.
I just think people use it as a buzzword for whatever
Agenda
thing they
want.
align with.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not interested in agendas. I'm interested in what the media is
Mhm.
and how it executes that. That's basically it.
Yeah, TC mentioned Ginny and Georgia with like flawed female characters, and yeah, I've heard that show is great. I do need to watch it. I mean, even what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, Euphoria. Like the main character is a woman who's like the most flawed character I've ever seen, being like addicted to drugs and that like causing like she destroys her entire life because of it, and she has extreme issues with trusting people and anxiety. Pretty sure she takes meds for like depression and shit as well. She has a lot of flaws.
And I don't think we even need to mention Legion as a show.
Oh yeah, Legion. Sid has a few issues. What's her name? Melanie as well. She has quite a few. Difficult dependence, I would say.
Kerry has a few issues as well.
Yeah, I would say a few, but like I think she's less of an example of a flawed female character rather than Sid and Melanie. Oh yeah, Lenny. she's a bit flawed,
Yeah,
I would
Lenny.
say. She's just a little.
And what's her name in season 3? I can't believe I forgot.
Switch?
That's the one. Yeah, she has a few
Switch.
issues.
She has a few daddy issues, as some might say.
destroyed to avoid the dreaded male gaze. Again, the
He says this. He shows it fucking. Oh, you can see her nipple. Whatever. Okay, it's just like the visuals you use. You should show something that like it's not very like sexual, but it's the kind of thing where like, because you know, I remember when Birds of Prey came out, right? And I was still like in the anti-SJW crowd, I remember watching that and being like, man, these costumes are hideous. Harley looks so ugly, right? Like, how the fuck did they make Margot Robbie ugly? And then I rewatched Birds of Prey recently, after coming out as trans, and I was like, oh, actually, I kind of like this. I kind of find Harley like very attractive wearing this rather than like her overly sexualized like clothes in Suicide Squad.
Did they forget about Hardcore in Peacemaker as well?
Yeah. And it's also like the Suicide Squad. Like Harley, she is sexualized by a character in that film by like putting her in those you know, that dress and everything because he wants to marry her and then they have sex. I don't know, man. I feel like women are still sexualized in media.
I mean, Gamora was sexualized by Quill.
Oh yeah.
Even
I mean,
Nebula's
I was
been
gonna
like,
say in the trailer, Nebula was sexualized by Crow, in a way. That was a great joke in the Guardians 3 trailer, though. I love it so much.
and Tony was literally a womanizer and still sexualized
Pepper a lot.
Pepper.
Yeah. And Black Widow he did in Iron Man 2. But to be fair, that was before Harvey Weinstein, so it doesn't count. Nebula shirt moment. Oh, not Naira. Don't get me started on that. Women can be flawed as long as I got to see the booba drinker. I mean,
And to be fair, they implied
agree.
that Peter and MJ had sex in No Way Home. Like they thought that.
I didn't know that,
Yeah,
but sure.
when they get in the apartment, he's like making like, oh, it's everywhere, it's everywhere. It's like implying that they're walking on them fucking.
Oh, okay.
But like it's like a throwaway joke, because Disney.
Oh yeah, the Resident Evil remakes, the characters are still very sexualized, like Jill and whatnot. Is it Jill in RE2? I think so.
Claire
T-
Claire Redfield is in RE2.
That one, yeah.
Tifa in Final Fantasy VII Remake is literally one of the most sexualized modern.
But isn't Final Fantasy
characters.
like Japanese or some shit? And these people think that Japan is like immune from being woke.
Yes. Wait, is Square Enix headquarters even in Japan? Who developed exact? I want to see who the exact developers
Or
for the remake. I know Japanese ones were like Nomura, but there was definitely American ones.
Go Sky Go. Oh yeah, I don't understand how you can complain about Gamora wearing a loose-fitting shirt and being like, man, she's becoming a man. Stop, James Gunn and his wokeness.
But even then, if you go, Japanese, she's
Oh, no,
very
it's,
sexualized in Western culture.
No. It's still. I just think it's stupid that. I just think like these people would say no, it's a Japanese thing, so that's their defense. But it's not like it makes sense because Japan has a lot of media that is very woke. I mean, Attack on Titan is extremely woke by their standards.
If I were to bring back to my recommendation corner, I remember when Breath of the Wild came out, Zelda got heavily sexualized, especially a certain shot that people zoomed in on, well, too. And Nintendo of America had a heavy hand in Breath of the Wild's development, so,
Mm.
And obviously Samus is still heavily sexualized today. So yeah.
I don't know. I mean, women are still sexualized in media. I think that's just like a given. I think it's very weird to say that's just not a thing.
I mean, Elsa, weird to use Disney, but Elsa is very sexualized by people.
Mm-hmm.
There's even one in this call.
Yeah.
No one. I think she's hot. It's true. I'll throw myself on that sword as well. I'm on Zod's side.
Did Peach get sexualized? I wouldn't count her as sexualized. I guess the biker suit, but to me that's just a standard reference.
Well, that's actually interesting now that I think about it, because a film that came out, I don't know. Wait, no, yeah, everyone watched besides The Menu with Anya Taylor-Joy. She's very sexualized in that film with a very good story reason, and she's also like extremely flawed. Like I don't think there's a better example. The film came out last year. She is sexualized. She's extremely flawed. She's a good character. She's not like way better than everyone else. She's still wearing clothes that are still very revealing and very sexy in a way, I guess.
I mean, to be fair to the robot, Peach has always been, well, since 3D era has become more defined, she's always been sexualized like Rosalina. Another film with Anya Taylor-Joy. Why can't I remember its name? The one with Matt Smith in it.
Last Night in Soho. Yeah,
she was
also
sexualized
sexualized a lot for story reasons.
Yeah.
I guess an example I can think of where someone's sexualized for non-story reasons, I guess, is like it was like the Batman Harley Quinn, which came out in like 2017-ish, where like famously like where Harley was very sexualized for little to no reason because, well, Bruce Timm kind of has a reputation of kind of wanting to fuck all his characters.
Oh yeah, wasn't he the one that made Batgirl and Batman get together?
Yeah, that's his ship. He's the one who made them fuck, and the one who made her pregnant with his kid.
Oh my god. Okay.
Also, speaking of the Batman, Catwoman,
Mm.
Yeah, and like
And
very
she sexualizes herself as a way to gain her. Well, it's Catwoman's character in general is that, you know, like using her sexuality as a way to get to gain what she wants, you know, in whatever situation, because she's a very attractive woman in every adaptation. Like, isn't she a
I mean,
sex worker in year one? I think she is, right?
yeah, she is, but like
Yeah, I remember when I was reading that.
it was the
Spot-
scene where Bruce is spying on a room and she undresses and like and like she's somewhat sexualized because you know she's undressing and stuff, but like it's kind of has a point to show that like you're not supposed to find this attractive. Like Bruce is creeping in on her, and it's supposed to mirror like what Riddler was doing at the start. Like so,
Yeah,
it has a
invading
point.
someone's privacy in a very creepy way.
And they even call it out when he says like, "Ah, she looked distressed at your apartment," and she's like, "You were spying on me."
Uh-huh.
Like you
And it-
realize that he's not a very. It's not a very good thing he's doing. Like
Mhm.
Yeah.
also you got Spider-Man PS4, Black Cat.
Oh
He's
yeah.
very sexualized, and there's even a whole storyline where she tricks Peter into thinking she got him pregnant, which basically confirms Peter fucked Black Cat.
Mm.
So, you know,
Yeah, someone mentioned Poison Ivy, and okay, let's make this the last example because we've used like hundreds of them already to prove the point. But the Harley Quinn show, Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn are quite sexualized. They're both very flawed characters who fail all the time throughout that show. And they're both very sexualized. I mean, there's scenes of them having sex in the show, Harley and Poison Ivy. So yeah.
The tipping point comes when you take a good initial idea and overdo it to the point where it compromises your story and characters. Having strong, complex, flawed, and relatable female characters in your story is great, but bombarding the audience with a relentless series of flawless, idealized, overpowered, unlikable girl bosses who easily dominate and overpower the weak and
You're gonna give an
competent
example.
men in their path.
What film is this? Does anyone know?
it's Watchmen.
Oh, wait, what? Watchmen? Okay. I'm pretty sure Drinker likes Watchmen. I think this is just part of the not actually having any visuals. He just searched on YouTube female characters.
But who also still live under the oppressive shadow of the patriarchy isn't. It's lazy, simplistic pandering, and it doesn't impress anyone. And for another example, let's consider the
You haven't used any examples. What?
Well, the thing that's so for me is that like all of these sort of visuals come from before the time he mentioned the cause, the supposed.
Yeah, it's so
boom.
weird, right? I guess other than the Bly one with Rebecca.
Most of these are from like before the 2010s. Like some of these are from like from the 80s and shit. So like, it's very conflicting what he's trying to get across.
Yeah, I mean, he's using visuals that obviously don't like make any sense with what he's trying to say, but like that's what he usually does. He really does not care about using like relevant visuals. It's so tiring, man. It takes so long to buy videos to get like perfect visuals, especially the Ant-Man one. I was like, oh, I need the perfect reaction clip for this. And I download an entire episode of a TV show because I'm like, I want this 5-second clip. But it's like, no, YouTube female characters download. Okay, that's done.
depiction of LGBT people, something that's had a very checkered history in entertainment, although you'd be surprised how many movies actually managed to work in gay characters all the way back to the 1930s and beyond, either hinted at.
Hinted at. Well, that's already the issue, right? Hinting at.
These characters who were shown in the past, how many of them lived till the end?
That's a good question. It's just like,
Don't bury your gays thing, which is where like every single LGBT character just snuffs it by the end.
yep. But it's also just like, it's like, oh, hinting that they're gay. Okay, but so is there no? It's no confirmation, so it's queer baiting. So it is an issue. It's like that's not good. This is the kind of thing where he would understand if he had asked someone who is part of the LGBTQ plus community for their input on this. But it's just like, no, you see, my input is all that need. It's what is it? There's like someone on Twitter being like, oh, so you think every time you write a story about a trans person, you should consult with the trans person if what you're writing is correct. It's like, yeah, obviously. Do you do you think if you're writing a story about a trans character, you don't think a trans person giving their input will be helpful? It's just so tiring. It's so obvious.
It's like it's literally the bare freaking minimum. Just ask them what would you want to see in a story? Like what would be okay in this story?
Just do some research.
And subtext or just straight up shown for what it was. I mean, really, what do you think Marlene Dietrich was trying to say about herself here? Anyway, the point once again is that simply having LGBT characters and relationships featured prominently in your story doesn't make it woke in the slightest.
Agreed. I'm worried, but this is gonna go. He's gonna say a but right now, and I'm gonna be very annoyed.
I'm expecting a but at the end of this.
Oof. Another good kind of but.
Mm.
It's like just writing a story about autism and you get the perspective of autistic people. Yeah, pretty much. I was gonna say Community is an example of that because it's funny because Dan Harmon, he based Abed, the character, on like an actor, friend of his. But then it turned out that Dan Harmon, like he related so much to Abed that he basically became like Dan Harmon self-insert, and he basically found out he had autism, like Dan Harmon, because he was writing Abed, which I think is funny.
They're just facets of human life that can make for interesting stories like any other. What does create problems, though, is the lazy practice of taking established characters and retconning their sexuality to make them gay after the fact.
Example, please. Tell me of one character who suddenly became gay.
Use for bare minimum. Just mention Dumbledore. Just.
Oh yeah,
something like that.
Dumbledore's the perfect one. But that's the kind of thing as well. It's like everyone hates what J.K. Rowling did that, like left and right.
Not now. This thought all over. Apparently, I think, and now that like, she's the go-to example for characters who were suddenly gay or suddenly a different sexuality. Or just,
No, yeah, and there was always a Jewish person named Anthony Goldstein. Obviously, it's definitely not a stereotypical name. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, because like the kind of thing I feel is like maybe a character like Harley Quinn is the kind of thing that makes sense for her character because of how much she was abused by Joker to kind of go like to the other side of the spectrum and only date women, right? It's the kind of thing where I don't think she was ever straight. She was bi. She was dating a man who abused her so much that she decided I don't want to date men anymore, which is a thing that happens to people in real life even. I know of people who've been through in abusive relationships where they kind of swear off dating men because of it.
Yo, Dumbledore died on my birthday. Let's go.
Let's go. Yeah, I agree. Jab is celebrating the gays dying. Cho Chang moment. Cho Chang is the best name, man. Because it's mixing a Chinese name and a Japanese name. And the chicken really had no idea.
she isn't even Chinese. I think the actor is actually Korean.
I think so, yeah. It's funny anyway.
Oh.
They're all the same. Korean, Chinese, Japanese, or all Asian. 10. Don't worry about
Yeah. And don't forget Kingsley Shacklebolt,
it.
as the one major black character.
Shacklebolt is the best name, man. It sounds like such a parody name. It's the kind of thing you'd hear in Rick and Morty, and Rick would be like, well, that's kind of racist. Like, racist name, by the way. Yeah, there is a joke in that, like that in Community, actually. With the black, I think it's a black character or a Chinese character or something. And the character's like, oh, and you, whatever your name is, racist name, by the way. Yeah. Jeb 360 no scoped Dumbledore. Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
Even though
bitches.
They've been depicted as straight for years or even decades by that point. The comic book industry's done it to such.
Okay, who are these? It's Wiccan and what's his name?
That's Wiccan and Hulkling. That's what he's called.
Yeah. Were they portrayed as straight before this?
No clue. I'm not. They're part of a blind spot on my Marvel knowledge.
Let's do
Hulkling and
some
Wiccan,
research.
let's see. Are back in Romance Anthology series. Hulkling, Wiccan. Wait, when were they introduced? They seem to be fairly new characters.
So Wiccan was introduced as William Maximoff in 1986.
Right.
Um,
Oh, TC said these are literally gay from the start. Wiccan and Billy were always gay. They were never introduced as straight. I trust TC, but obviously research is important. But that already.
Exchanges between Wiccan and Hulkling shows that the two teams are definitely lovers. Alan Heiberg confirmed his speculation, stating that his attempt was to reveal the relationship, and he was surprised that subtle clues were picked up on so quickly. So what did he write? He did the Young Avengers series.
What year do you know? Oh yeah, there's also
Uh,
I just saw it because there's I forgot the two Runaways characters. It's Nico
So-
Minoru and Carolina Dean. I remember the names even though I've not finished that show. Those two, as far as I know, they were always, well, at least bisexual.
So Wiccan as the actual character, Wiccan,
Mhm.
did appear in Young Avengers.
Right, and what year was that?
2005, Young Avengers issue 6.
And by then, the writer was already like, they're gay.
Confirmed they're gay after the stories came out. He was like, we always attended this. These were all the clues. So it's not the same as J.K. Rowling when there's fuck all mention.
Yeah, which is like, oh gosh, Dumbledore used to date a bad man called Grindelwald who wanted to stop World War II, which is bad for some reason. Fantastic Beasts 2 is amazing, guys.
Yeah.
And it's worth noting this is the Billy Kaplan version of Wiccan, which, yes, was always intended to be gay. So let's look at Hulkling.
I'm
Hulkling first appeared in Young Avengers, so TC's right.
all right, cool. Drinker says stupid things about things he doesn't understand or know about. Yeah, usually. It's just like, would you not choose a character that actually went through this, like, that you know about? Why would you choose these comics? I'm confused. Surely there is some character. Surely you could just use Dumbledore. Like, honestly.
Such a degree that it's practically a meme by now, but it's also creeping into movies and TV shows at an alarming rates. Like how Star Trek Beyond decided to show Sulu, a historically straight character, meeting up with his husband for some shore leave. Damn.
Wait. Does anyone here know Star Trek? So they can know if this is true.
Yeah, I saw the film like a few days ago, but like he has like he meets up with his husband on like a space station they go to, and like it's revealed that he's gay, and like it was a whole thing because like as far as I know, George Takei, the original actor, is gay, and like
Yes.
this is a reboot timeline, so they can really just sort of do what they want.
Oh, it's another timeline?
Yeah, it's not the same as the original series.
So why does it matter? It's a different continuity.
Like, as far as I'm concerned, like the reboot, like, because it involves time travel and shit, like happened probably before Sulu was born. So for all you know, you could just say, oh, the universe changing caused him to be gay, or like, or just we didn't see him, or he was buying the original series. So,
Like,
the whole thing with like Gene Roddenberry's thing is that like the sort of idea of bigotry, like homophobia, is just gone. Like it's like a perfect utopia.
Right. Yeah. That's the kind of thing with Star Trek that from what I've seen, I've just seen like Red Letter Media talk about Star Trek, but that's basically my knowledge. But that they've mentioned about how like the point of Star Trek a lot of the time is just basically this utopia where everything's fine. There's no racism, sexism, homophobia. Everything's perfect. And the conflicts come from like some really interesting like places of like morality and shit like that, which I find really interesting. Which is why I definitely want to check out Star Trek.
yeah, you never want to use Star Trek because Star Trek is not like Doctor Who, where it's like one show with a soft reboot. Star Trek has many hard reboots with different continuities.
Well,
that
aren't the new
may
shows?
make
I'm
it
pretty sure
something.
like I don't know if Picard is in a different continuity. I'm pretty sure like one of the new shows is in a different continuity of the live action show.
Picard, to my knowledge, isn't in a
Mhm.
different continuity,
Nah.
but
It's
one of
the
them
same
is. One of them is.
Right. It is true, but on Earth doesn't matter if Sulu's gay or not. Well, the point he's making, Jolly Shep, I don't know if you were here when he was establishing the thesis of this point, is that for representation in terms of LGBT characters, there have been good versions, have been bad versions, and one of the things that has been done poorly recently is the idea of getting established characters and making them gay retroactively, like retconning their sexuality. First example he used was Wiccan and Hulkling, which is like, what? Apparently it's Sulu. Star Trek had the first interracial kiss on TV, and depicts a post-scarcity, post-capitalism society. It's always been woke, yeah. That's what I've heard as well. it's really interesting because I don't know how my voice crack, Jesus Christ. I don't know how these people like the Star Trek or ever liked it because it was always from everything I've seen. Like there's a clip I've seen on RLM where it's like a character meets like another character that like it's like an old friend. It's like, oh hey, my friend name says their name, and the person says, no, actually my name is this, and it's like, oh my friend, and then he says like the new name, basically just being like, you know, character strands, and the main character, like one of the main characters of the ensemble of the show, is very much okay with it. It's always been like for the time that seems like really impressive trends, positive stuff.
Even like, no, I haven't seen it yet. I'm just relying on like something I've seen. But like, there's an episode of Next Generation, which I think Zod can probably back up. Is that it's an episode where one of the main characters like meets like a genderless being who's like very androgynous, and then it's like very tackling the idea of like if you're into this, if you're into someone who's like very queer, what does that make you? Does that make you does that make you gay? Does that make you still straight? Like, and like even like the person who made it admitted that he wished like he made the person he was into like more androgynous because it was very much still female looking. So, like,
Yeah.
like, it's always been like that.
I wouldn't say Drinker has a issue with reinterpreting characters outright. If we were to Stillman, I think take Dumbledore, because I think Dumbledore is actually a good example. I think he has an issue where there's literally no hints to their sexuality being anything other than, for example, straight. And then for the sake of representation, they just go, oh, they're whatever sexuality you want to put, and they just go, leave it there. An extreme form, essentially, is what Drinker seems to have issue with, but the problem with Drinker is he's very bad faith to any media that reinterprets sexuality, such as someone tried to come to terms with our identity, going, hey, I believed I was straight, but I'm having these...
I mean, that's like most LGBT media is characters who spent most of their lives thinking they're straight and acting straight and realizing they're not. I mean, it's fucking... what's the name? Blue's Ormus Collar is like one of the best examples of exploring that with a character, especially because she dates like the woman throughout the film, and when they break up, she goes back to dating men. It's really interesting.
It's like if you're in a if you're in a heterodominant world with heterodominant values, obviously you'll feel some sort of disconnect to think, hey, surely I'm straight, everyone else is. Well, majority of people are. That's what he doesn't realise. That's his issue.
Yeah, it's like Drinker's perspective very much comes across as like I don't want to cross as like rude, but like a sort of older generation who doesn't really get the actual struggles that LGBT people go through, especially the younger generation that we have to go through. And like, I recommended it a while ago, but like Heartstopper is basically the perfect encapsulation of what the younger generation of LGBT people have to go through. Like years of being in the closet, years of thinking you're straight, and then having a sudden shock to you, wondering, oh, am I not straight? Like. And figuring that out, it's a very long process. Like it can take years and years.
I mean, everyone in this chat isn't straight or this. We've had our journeys of dealing with it. I mean, Zod figured out he wasn't straight when he met us. It was a process. It's the kind of thing that isn't, you know, and it takes time.
Hell, even me, like.
Oh yeah, you're figuring out you were trans. You thought you were gender fluid for a while as well.
I very much thought I was like cis until around like mid 2021. Then I started questioning. Then I thought maybe I could be gender fluid. And then next thing you know, it was around November when I said I hate being a man. Then I was like, yep, I'm trans.
Even George Takei, who's openly gay himself, thought that decision was
really unfortunate. I'm sorry, when he says openly gay himself, just really unfortunate shows up on screen. That was so funny.
nothing but bullshit pandering, and he was right. Another trend in modern entertainment is the way gay relationships are only ever depicted in the most positive and idealized way possible.
That's not true. Have you seen Euphoria? Have you seen the relationship between Jules and Rue? Because, oh my god, the relationship is not positive. It's the kind of thing from episode 1, you know, that relationship can't last.
even to bring it back to Russell T Davies, like Jack and Yanto, which was like the first major gay relationship in Doctor Who, ends in like an absolute tragedy, doesn't it? Where
Yeah.
like that, where that's an absolutely brutal gay relationship. So he's like the forerunner for gay writers. So like,
Mhm. Oh yeah, sex
really?
education as well with shit. I don't know if I want to spoil.
Yeah, I know who you
Yeah,
mean. Like,
it's Eric. He has a relationship with two people throughout sex education. I don't want to say who, spoilers, but both of them are not depicted in the most positive way. I mean, Eric's relationship with his own sexuality is very interesting. It's not always depicted in a positive light. I love Eric as a character in sex education. He's portrayed so well.
Speaking of RTD, there is a same-sex relationship in Years and Years that takes an interesting turn. That is a
Oh
positive.
yeah, that's very
But
true.
I won't say details because I don't know if Studio's still watching.
I've not watched it.
not yet.
You wouldn't want to spoil me either, Jeb. Studio isn't
I
the only
don't-
person that cares about that.
He
I
might as well though.
care. I care about Studio's values.
Fuck you.
I
Oh
guess-
yeah, House as well with 13 being all the time she used her because she's bisexual, and she had a disease, degenerative disease. She wanted to use like dating women as like a challenge. That's what House even describes it as. It's fun. I love House, sorry, but with 13 being like, oh, I want to sleep around with a bunch of women because it's like harder to get women. It proves that she's like a tougher, cooler, but she like was self-destructing by using a lot of drugs and shit like that. We are Arcane as well.
Blide literally ends in tragedy as well.
To be fair, that relationship's portrayed positively. Even though it's tragic, it's a positive gay relationship. It's not portrayed as like toxic or anything. As like the two of them would break up, then it would end. But like it's the same thing that like every relationship will end at some point with someone dying. It's just theirs, but it was a little earlier. So yeah, that we proved the point that Drinker's silly.
Like, how many stories and TV shows have you seen recently where heterosexual relationships are either non existent or depicted as dysfunctional, loveless?
I think very few, honestly.
Why is he showing House of the Dragon? Which
It doesn't isn't what's her face? Shit, what's the actor's name? The one that's really cute. Millie Alcock. Isn't her character gay in this show?
No, actually, the person who's gay, which I guess spoilers, but the Valerion that like Rhaenyra has to marry is actually gay, and like they basically make a deal where she'll fuck about and he can secretly be seen as boy toy.
Oh, okay.
Like that's the one gay relationship in the show.
Well, Willow has something similar actually.
And also, this is Westeros. Like no relationship is seen as positive. In the first episode, the character thing where like Viserys, like he has two marriages in the show, and they both sort of end up not that great.
I'm just confused because I think it's like the case of like heterosexual relationships being portrayed as good or bad. It just depends on what approach your story's going after. I think a lot of times it is positive, a lot of times it isn't, and it's based on character reasons rather than just, oh, it's heterosexual, so they gotta break up. Like that seems strange to me. People want to fuck their family in this, but incest is fine. I cross the line when there are gay people.
It's also just worth as well, like, because like, you've got to draw sort of a line between a relationship being portrayed in a negative way versus like a more sort of nuanced sort of way, if you know what I mean. Like having like a relationship that has conflicts but still sort of ultimately works versus a relationship that's just strictly portrayed as like toxic and just overall negative. And I don't know if like if Drinkers like what he considers to be a relationship that's been portrayed as like a heterosexual relationship being portrayed in a negative way.
I guess Quantumania had a positive heterosexual relationship with Hope and Hank. Hope and Hank? No, Hope and Scott. Jesus Christ, Hope and this is not Game of Thrones. And Hank and Janet, they were both like positive, like they were very like loving with each other, I guess. I don't know, Puss in Boots too. That was a positive heterosexual relationship. Palm Springs.
I mean, they're literally cats.
It's still heterosexual. Though to be fair, that was a very funny meme about the two being trans that I laughed a lot that she tweeted. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. There's still a lot of stories that are positive about heterosexual relationships. It's just a strange thing, I guess. I don't know. It's just like I feel like a very weird generalization. Be like, oh, well, heterosexual relationships are not portrayed as good anymore because heterosexuals are seen as the bad. It's like, eh.
This video has just been blanket statement after blanket statement.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Toxic or breaking down entirely, whereas gay relationships are almost universally framed as stories of true love and understanding between two wonderful people.
Yeah, it's just because it's that way implied. Does it? Whatever. Fucking Hannah and what the fuck is his name? Rahul's character. Fuck. Okay, I need to remember
Owen?
his name. Owen, thank you. Jesus Christ, yeah. Hannah and Owen are positive heterosexual relationship. Fucking Peter Quint and Rebecca. Like, Peter Quint's... His issues come from his mom. It isn't from his character. Their relationship is positive.
It's also worth noting that that this relationship was formed because of the toxic traits of suppressing your sexuality.
Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like it was like perfect from the beginning. They had issues to work through of Jamie not being willing to allow Danny to have her time to deal with like the grief over her ex-boyfriend and whatnot. It's just like, hey, another time maybe, you know, not being allowed to comfort her because she has issues with like trusting people and letting them in because ultimately they hurt her, which is, you know, due to her past trauma, especially with being, you know, in prison for a while.
And I kind of noticed that this is probably one of the first time in the actual video that he's found footage to actually line up with what he's saying, because it cuts to like.
This is the first time since he put Harvey Weinstein on screen that he's used relevant footage.
But like he put the like House of the Dragon thing. He put like that like Alicent and Viserys' relationship is seen as negative when like it's literally given a reason in that Alicent was basically forced into it just so her father could get more power, and like she was basically coerced into doing it.
I mean, it's such a trope as well with like these stories about like kingdoms and shit of having like, oh, the prince/princess is forced to marry a person they don't know or don't like rather than being with their true love. Like it's, you know, I don't know. I feel like doing that, just saying, oh, heterosexual relationships are viewed as bad. It's like, nah, that is bad. Forcing someone to marry someone, it doesn't mean if it's just because it's heterosexual that it's bad.
And even then, it isn't seen as an absolutely god awful relationship. Like they still somewhat care for each other. Even Alicent, like by the end of the series, admits she cares about Viserys, and like even at the start, they actually do have a good friendship. So it's not. It's well, like Zod said, it's nuanced. It's not seen as in a bad light. It's just seen in a nuanced light.
Mm-hmm. It's not black and white where heteros bad, homos good. So
Triumphing against the odds. That sort
they
of
don't triumph against the odds. Danny dies. What?
Danny literally kills herself.
Yeah.
stuff's great and all, but if that's the only aspect of relationships that you ever show, then
It wasn't the only aspect. Did you not watch the show? Did you not see Danny dealing with depression and being taken over by the lady in the lake? I know we're spoiling a lot of Bly. If you guys have not watched it, sorry, but it's relevant. Also, Lightyear, what a fucking example to use. Like the scene that's like in 2 seconds of 2 women kissing, right? Fucking hell.
Like I just remember my reaction to like how like everyone was saying, oh, like Lightyear's woke, it's grooming your children, and then like I saw this is what this is what all the fuss was. I was like, is that it? Is that it? Like that's the fuss. A 2-second peck on the cheek.
Similar with Eternals.
Eternals is even longer as far as I know. It's called more attention to.
creates yet another restriction on your ability to tell a compelling
Akoff edit. So yeah, he generally just went to like a channel that edits a bunch of LGBT like probably scenes together. Is that it? Oh, so
Let's
funny.
have a look. Let's find out. Akoff edits.
Alright, another example of successful hetero relationship is BoJack Horseman later on in season 6 with Diane. I won't go much further because spoilers a lot, yeah. I mean, yeah, there's a lot.
There ain't no way. There is no way.
What?
What?
If this is the channel, just have a look at their videos. Some of their recent ones say Tangled being chaotic. It is complicated videos,
Yeah.
but
I was
I found the channel.
alright. What I was gonna mention in terms of as you mentioned BoJack, like even Rick and Morty, they have a season where Beth and Jerry spend some time apart, but they get back together at the end, and they kind of work through their differences, and they're much healthier afterwards. It's like a positive view of a heterosexual relationship. What if Frozen was a game? Life is strange. Disney edit. Tangled being chaotic, epic out of context, entering adulthood bit like from the Apple TV movie Luck. This is amazing. Alicia and her wife, all scenes. Oh, that's what he saw. Alicia and her wife, all scenes HD, Buzz Lightyear Picture 2022. That was the video he downloaded. That's funny.
Okay.
We did it. We figured it.
Oh no.
Mm.
Oh no. Shrinker, you're using a channel that has the pronouns in them. They say their
No.
pronouns are she, they.
No
no.
way.
Oh no, Shrinker.
How could you
And
do
the
this?
next
You betrayed the Fandom Menace, Drinker.
Although Elsa PFP, gotta respect it.
Yeah, true. I didn't show it to chat. Hold on, let me show it real quick. God damn it, let me get the link. Here, chat. But how does Drinker explain the barrier gaze trope? I don't think he would. I think he would say it's just like any trope. It can be used well or not. But yeah, this is the profile picture, and this is the channel. This is the video that Drinker downloaded. But it's the kind of thing where I think he'd like say, nah, it's not a thing, you know, like for the barrier gaze, no, that's not a thing. It's just gay characters that happen to die in the story because it makes sense. It's like a lot of the times that's not the case, and it's kind of the thing where it's like you're just using gay people as a scapegoat because their life is worth less than the straight people in a story.
Telling a nuanced story, you're locked into one specific path that denies the reality and complexity of real life.
I love that he shows blue is the warmest color, which shows their relationship as also very negatively because forgot her Adele, yeah, obviously the name of the film, La Vida Adele. Anyway, she cheats on Lacey though at a certain point. Like she has a very hard time dealing with their relationship. It's a film that does not portray their relationship as positive all the time, especially towards like the latter half of the second act. It's very, very much not positive.
Life, substituting it for an idealized fantasy world where nothing gay can ever be bad. Putting any group up on a pedestal is just as damaging to your storytelling ability as demonizing them is.
That's
Now, the reason
Nightmare
I've
Alley.
spent
Why
so
would you
long
use
trying to
that?
clarify all this stuff is because I can see a bit of a problem looming on the horizon here. Now that more and more people are pushing back against wokeness in entertainment,
He's using the same meta he used like 2 minutes into the video because it's the same cuts. I recognize them. I remember when I was
Yeah.
seeing Danny Trejo. Amazing, well done, Drinker. Woohoo.
I think we're in danger of swinging too far in the opposite direction, turning a well-justified backlash into a mindless witch hunt, seeing
Such
wokeness
as?
around every corner, and trashing things that
Oh,
were made
okay. I kind of agree with this then. Yes, that people see wokeness in everything, despite like obviously not being in everything. Sometimes things are just more left-leaning.
with only good intentions. Just because a new project happens to have a diverse cast, or some gay characters, or women in prominent roles, or explores some progressive political ideas, doesn't automatically make it woke. If it did, then people would still be trashing Star Trek The Next Generation to this very day.
Sure.
But the issue is, Drinker, you play into this. You
Yeah.
What really
literally
matters
do
He does
this.
the exact thing he's complaining about. It's weird. I don't know how he would differentiate what he does with what he's criticizing people from doing, right? I don't.
You're probably like,
really
oh,
know what the difference is.
not. You're probably like, not those examples.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where again, Drinker fails to clarify a lot of shit. Right, winger needed a Sarkeesian, yeah, pretty much.
matters is how all of this stuff is implemented, the intention behind it, how well it integrates into the narrative, whether it enhances and complements or undermines your investment in the story. That's what's actually important to any piece of entertainment, and if you start dismissing and shitting on stuff simply for what it contains rather than how it's been put together, then all you're doing is undermining and discrediting legitimate criticism. If you let yourself become the boy who cried woke, then nobody's going to take you seriously when you come to point out genuine problems and shortcomings.
I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
you're correct. It's just the problem that you do the exact thing you're criticizing, but you're not wrong.
Yeah, like that's the thing is that like I do think that like all these anti-SJWs sort of like did start off with some sort of intention of like pointing out when they failed to do this, to do what he's pointing out, like the actual shortcomings. But eventually, it just sort of got to a point where, probably through a mix of popularity, riding on the views and stuff, that they just sort of they just became reactionary.
Yeah.
Like
Rather than identifying when things are woke, as they say, they identified something that is viewed poorly, and they're just like, oh, it has to be woke. Like, they try to find the woke stuff in the thing after the fact, rather than just being like, oh no, yeah, that was woke.
yeah, and even like his point about how like for example, when we like have similar sort of criticisms to like something like that, like these lot have, like automatically we're sort of kind of lumped in with this lot because we have the same sort of criticism, so it means must mean we also think it's woke and shit. So like it's a very
It's tiring. It just became a cultural war thing rather than a
Yeah.
like trying
Yeah,
to
it's-
criticize media thing.
exactly, yeah.
I was gonna say something, but I forgot.
And the easier it becomes for all of that stuff to start creeping back in again. So I guess ultimately, my key takeaway from this whole thing is nuance. It's about having the common sense and restraint to look at these things objectively and fairly rather than passing judgment right away. And yeah, it's not
Yeah.
always easy, but ultimately if you get it right, then it's going to make for a much more enjoyable time with entertainment today. Anyway, that's all I've got
have
for
for
today.
Go away now.
Go away now.
We did it. Oh, did you see F9 there? That was fun. I miss F9 with the car bunch jump.
What a weird video. That's like, it's like the foundation lay. This is a good video, like foundations wise. As soon as he tries elaborating on anything, it goes to shit.
Mm-hmm.
It was like he's like really close to getting it, but it's like just really sort of fumbles at like some of the specifics. Like he does get the overall point that like crying woke at everything is just ultimately gonna undermine it all. But like like I said, he plays into that same thing himself, not to the same extent as like some others. Like because as there's no way in hell as in Gary would like make something like this and make the same points. But like I don't know, it just feels weird. It's like he is close to, it does. It just reinforces to me why it feels like he's the most reasonable one out of that lot.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, he is the closest to getting it, but like
I think he gets
I
the
don't know.
idea. He just doesn't know how to apply it.
yeah,
Yeah, because he does, because he says the ideas in this very video, but then he does the very things he's claiming he's against and wants nuance of
Yeah.
in this very video. Like, I think there's a disconnect for him.
Yeah.
I think what really doesn't help is just his refusal to use examples. It just like talking about everything in like a generalized way just really sort of gets in the way of like making points properly. Like if you
when
had like particular films or shows just like note down as examples so he could talk about specifically how they fit his point, like how they're poorly implemented,
Mm.
like stuff like that, then it'd help a lot more, but he just doesn't.
And even when he does use examples, to take for example Norway, Shetland, Russia, they're inaccurate, and you can tell he hasn't actually
Done research.
done the research necessary. He's just pulled it out.
Yeah. It's funnily enough, because he says the conclusion basically is like nuance. Be more nuanced in the way you view these things. He's lacking a lot of nuance in the way he views certain aspects of what this would entail and what and how you could apply wokeness to whatever media he's talking about. That's someone mentioned the Dead Space remake. That's what I wanted to say when I said I forgot. He pretty sure, as far as I know, he liked the game and he was streaming it, and people are like, "That's woke. You shouldn't like it." I think that's what happened because I think I remember someone saying that on EFAP. I think it was Mahler's being like, "Oh yeah, Drinker was streaming it and people were calling it woke."
Yeah, same with God of War. I think he
Ragnarok,
stopped
yeah.
streaming it.
Yeah.
I think he stopped streaming it because of people in chat like being annoyed about it.
Jesus. Imagine your chat being so against you streaming a game because they're like, "Oh, it's woke. You shouldn't play it. You should be enjoying it." That's such a tiring way. Maybe that's kind of what made him want to make this video. Is people being like, "Dead Space is woke. God of War Ragnarok is woke. You shouldn't like these things." Like, why are you calling it woke? It's genuinely, it's not doing anything. That's like trying to pass a message just because you have gender neutral bathrooms. Like, Jesus fuck. Or
Yeah,
women
that's
don't
a
have
lot.
big boobs, right? That was a thing that people complained about with Dead Space.
Yeah, one of the characters had their tits just like slightly lessened from the original game. So, well.
SJWIMO.
It does feel like a lot like those two games in particular is just like where something's broke. It's like people complain about things being woke as just like it's crossed some sort of weird line where it's just being seen just like literally everywhere now, and now people are starting to see that, and it's like, what's going on?
Yeah, it kind of feels like these people lost the plot, which is funny because they haven't been the most smartest people the past few years, but with God of War Ragnarok and Dead Space, it just seems kind of like insane. You're calling anything woke just because it's modern, just because it's new. It's insane.
Yeah, and thanks to the popularity of both those games, it makes it feel like that sort of conversation has gotten a little bit more widespread now. And it's like, I don't know, it's just weird how, like, same with Last of Us as well, because like,
Oh yeah,
that's
Last of Us 2
similar
also had
position.
like some huge backlash about like Ellie and Dina's relationship being like a main focus, Abby being like a strong woman who's not like the most does have like big boobs or something, she's just muscly. People are like, how dare you? People even said like before the game came out they thought she was gonna be a trans character. I'm like, oh my god, they made a trans character kill Joel. It's like, fucking hell, how tiring is that?
Yeah, I remember watching Mauler's playthrough of that game, and when the actual trans character came along, there was loads of people in chat that were like whining. It's like,
Oh yeah, even though Lev is like one of the best characters in the game.
Yeah.
Fucking tiring. If he doesn't like being on the receiving end of mob mentality, then he shouldn't use the word woke to play into that mob mentality in the first place. But he said he doesn't like to use the word woke anymore. He said in the beginning of this video, but he still uses like the definition of it, which is what we were talking about in the beginning of like, oh, maybe you don't want to use the words Mary Sue, don't want to use like word objective and shit like that, and like conversation about films, because it kind of muddles the conversation because it becomes like a more of a semantics thing. If you just use the definition, it makes it easier to have a conversation with someone like on the opposite side because they're not going to focus on like the word. But like he still espouses the same thing, it's just using the word. He just doesn't use the word itself, but it's like still the same thing, right? So I don't know what the meaningful difference here would be. I guess it's better that he doesn't use the word, but he still says the same thing. So it's by that point, I don't really know how that's gonna help him not be on the the receiving end of mob mentality, like you said, Jolly. So I'm not entirely sure.
It does make me wonder if there's like say like a year or two from now, his position's going to end up like changing a bit more drastically. Like if he's like plays less into that sort of thing.
I mean, he's the one out of all like these types of people that I think would fall more out of that type of mentality. I mean, you saw how like EFAP itself has like gotten away a lot from that type of like, oh, anti-woke stuff and whatnot, because they're just like very tired of it. They made fun of like the woke shit a lot in recent streams, even on Metal's birthday stream.
And to make clear, we're not talking about the fact of what guests they include, just the topics that are spoken about by the host specifically.
Yes. Yeah, like Mahler, Rags, and Fringy, they're very much against like the word woke itself. They find it so tiring, especially Fringy, you can tell. And it's just like, they kind of find like that's such a stupid like way to criticize things and to analyze things. It kind of feels like you're like losing the idea of what the conversation should be from like from the get-go. So kind of loses the point of the conversation at all.
Yeah, that's why the word woke in general just feels like odd to hear, because like whenever someone says it, it just feels a lot like, okay, so feels more like you're looking at the story through a particular like political, cultural lens rather than like what the story actually is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's basically what Drinker said. You know, being more objective and not trying to like analyze it before with like that bias. Just analyze it as it comes and be fair to the media you're watching, which Drinker doesn't do, but it's what you should do. And he at least seems to believe that idea, even if he doesn't apply it himself consistently.
I just want to say as well, for the inevitable comments, because we got this last time, for those going, why are they so fixated on the visuals? Again, references through visual means is very fucking handy, because I'd be able to go, okay, he seems to think this is an example. Instead, throughout this video, we're like, does he think this is an example? Does he not? Do we have to assume this is just generic? We don't know, because he doesn't differentiate it very well, except for the Weinstein moment.
And what makes it like this video in particular compared to the other one, it's inconsistent, because like we pointed out, there's like the Weinstein thing, and like when he showed House of Dragon and Bly, yeah, like those are meant to be references to what he's saying, but then the rest of it just isn't. So
yeah,
as I say, it feels very inconsistent. So you're not quite sure what you're supposed to.
Yeah, that and a Lightyear, right? He picked out a specific video just for the Lightyear.
Yeah, if effective editing is meant to be another way to communicate to your audience. So
Yeah.
to cite Mauler's videos,
I was gonna say his Multiverse of Madness one. I think it's probably one of the most impressive of every visual being important to like what he's saying, to like convey tone and to convey like an example of what he's saying, or like, you know, everything like that. It's always very, very thought out, every visual he uses for that.
Yeah, regardless of the points he's written, his visual references are pretty much spot on.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say, save for like Matthew Matosis.
Yeah, White Light.
With his White Light. Liam Triforce is another person I recommend for gaming videos.
Well,
There's a reason.
I'd say with gaming is a bit easier because you don't need to cut every like 8 seconds, so you don't get copyrights flagged. Because no clips from like anything can be over 8 seconds, but video games you can, so it's easier to have consistent visuals. But still, Mahler manages it, and a lot of other JX manages it without having to you know, like subtract from the video and just put random visuals.
Jay's a good one, even like the 5-hour Doctor Who video. I don't think there's one moment where a visual reference is inaccurate to what's being said.
Mm-hmm.
So you need these, because again they explain to your audience. That way you also save on the video time. You don't have to go, for example, this, that. You just go, here's this film we'll show.
Yeah, because if you show an example when you're making a generalized statement, you're like, oh, this example, okay, so like I understand what you're talking about. I mean, it's better if you elaborate on it, especially if it's a generalized point you're making, when it's important to your point to have an example, because it helps with understanding the point you're making, like obviously, because like he didn't explain Bly. We've just all watched Bly here, and we're like, wait, what you're saying doesn't really fit with Bly, does it? Or House of the Dragon, which was the point. But he at least made, like, using those as examples at least help us understand his point more clearly.
Oh, it's worth noting Mauler's visual references. Mauler isn't just the only one that edits. I want to credit Meme and whoever else does
Yeah,
that.
Fringy J, I think. Yeah, they added the Multiverse of Madness one.
Yeah, I want to make very clear, it isn't just Mauler that edits.
Yeah, he used to be, and even then he was very good, but now he has help, which helps. Which Drinker should hire an editor, because fucking hell. Drinker's issues is financially cynical or poorly written representation. He should drop the word woke and start calling out rainbow capitalism. Well, they do, and they call that woke, right? Because they think the left wing like rainbow capitalism. Like, they don't understand. I don't think they've heard the word rainbow capitalism. But I think they think that, like, companies being, like, you know, using, like, pride flags in June and shit like that. Like, I think they think that, like, the left likes that, even though it's like the left criticizes companies when they do that way more than the right ever would, I feel.
Yeah, like I heavily scrutinize companies that, like Bethesda, for example, goes, "Oh, I'm into each one." No, whereas I think Insomniac's different. I'm certain Insomniac don't fall into that issue.
What I
So
liked
that's
was
why
with like Liverpool, for example, they had the Pride flag for like most of 2022. It wasn't just in June, and they have like a lot of really important. Liverpool was in the football club, and they have like a lot of really important like projects of helping LGBT people and whatnot. And despite them tweeting about it and getting like a lot of negative backlash because football fans are the worst, they still keep doing it, which is like that's not performative. You're doing something, which is good.
exactly. It's about essentially how you help these communities. It's why again I like Insomniac a lot, and why I support that company as a whole versus other ones.
Yeah, and Skittles, funnily enough, because people were mad at M&M's this year and were like, buy Skittles, when those owned by the same like parent company. But anyway, Skittles last year had a very good Pride campaign where they had a bunch of LGBT artists like me involved with making or like the art for the Skittles bags and whatnot, and they had like a links to all their like websites and shit in their website and talking about their stories. Like it was very positive of LGBT people as well. It's still like performative in some sense, but it was way better than like most of the companies which just changed their profile picture on Twitter to have a pride flag, except for the Middle Eastern ones. But most baffled that they seem to think that the boardrooms of companies like Disney are left wing rather than apolitical and non-concerned with profit chasing. Yeah, it's weird because they're like, oh, these socialism, these communists. It's like, no, they're extremely capitalist. We know the people who work at Disney have to be capitalists, right? Like, it's insane to think not.
Yeah, like you're closer in going that the boardroom of BBC are left wing, which by the way is not true.
Yeah,
There's literally
they've been
there's
very
literally
right wing and very pro Tory, like getting Tories elected of recent years.
I just want to point out there's literally an investigation right now with I think was it the chairman? Like a chairman was put in by Boris Johnson or something like that, and there's currently an investigation on that with loans being made. It's worth noting this is the news division and stuff like that, not specifically the TV division. That I can believe has left-wing individuals, especially the head of it.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember his name. He's very positive around Doctor Who, and he's working really well with Russell T Davies.
Arguments are so flawed, like every gay relationship I can think of is so flawed. I think it's like obviously you can find examples of gay relationships not being flawed in the same way you can find examples of hetero relationships not being flawed, which is usually happens with like stories where the focus isn't usually the relationship, or if it is, it's just a very shitty film. Like About Time, the film doesn't think that the relationship is flawed between Donald Gleason and Rachel McAdams, even though he's like a manipulative piece of shit who fucking travels in time to manipulate Rachel McAdams into falling in love with him, and the film just does not acknowledge that as a fact. Their relationship is viewed as extremely idealized in that film. They don't face any conflict between the two after they get together.
That's it, Chair, the BBC.
Cousin
Yeah,
of Boris.
and
Oh my god, cousin of Boris. Back to love for Boris
it,
Johnson from another cousin that declared they had no conflicts of interest or political links in their application for the BBC. That's hilarious.
it's fucking insane. There's a huge investigation. You don't really see it in the news, like the main news. But if you like Jolly as well versed in politics right now, there's about 10 investigations for Boris alone ongoing because of all his shit.
Yeah, Boris is amazing. Boris is a masterpiece. We need to see that be live action Boris Johnson show.
But Boris, the fact he got into power and the fact he lasted so long, it is an enigma. There's so
The
many
Director
things that went
General
wrong.
of the BBC, a separate person, also used to be Rishi Sunak's ex-boss at
Yes.
Goldman Sachs. I don't know any
Yep.
of those names, but
You know who Rishi Sunak is. We've mentioned this. Prime Minister.
oh, is it the
Current one.
current? Okay. It's
Yeah, the
because
one
you've
that-
changed prime minister so much. It genuinely is hard to keep up.
Okay, so we went for Boris
Uh-huh.
for like 2 years roughly. We had then Liz Truss for 50 days, where she basically imploded the economy.
Right.
Who tried to throw everyone under the bus. And then we had Rishi Sunak, who's still going, and I suspect Starmer's going to get in for the next election because polls are still very, very strong for Labour.
When's the next election?
It depends when it'll either be the natural cause, which is next year, I think May,
Right.
or it could be called early by, I'd say, end of this year. But that requires the Tories to back it, and right now they're not. They're not
Right.
going to back that.
Yeah,
That'd
because
be
they know they'd
political
lose,
suicide.
right? Yeah.
Unless what happens is Rishi completely implodes the Tory party, and they're like, okay, we need it's going to get worse from here. We need to do this now. It's not going to happen. Liz Truss was incredible. I remember people going, "Oh, Liz Truss is the right person." I just thought, "Oh, we're all going to die." It's the end.
She couldn't outlast alas.
50 days. Like my granddad was like in intensive care with a brain tumour for longer than 50 days. Next election is in Jan 2025. I'm certain it's not.
Apparently,
Unless
the
I'm wrong.
words "worst movie" are trending on Twitter, and I'm finding it very funny how many people were signing like Wonder
Oh,
Woman
no,
1984
I
and
am
shit
wrong.
like that.
My apologies. It's January 2025. My bad. So then, yeah, I'd expect the next election 2024 then. I don't see them going all the way to Jan 2025. That very, very rarely happens. But anything can happen. We saw Boris literally implode, ruin an entire huge landslide. And now Labour has the landslide. So Starmer could implode. It's not looking likely. Whatever grievances people have with him, he seems to be very sensible in public image. It's working, whatever he's doing, based on the polls, that is. So we'll see. We'll see. UK's fucked either way, in my eyes. The
Bless.
problem is we've had too much Tory rot. So even if we had someone more on the left than Starmer, like a Corbyn, get in, it's still fucked.
I agree completely. I know about every single thing you mentioned. I'm very in the loop about UK politics.
UK politics is a clusterfuck. It really is right now. It's like imagine what was previously very hidden corruption now just being the standard.
Ah, I can't imagine, Jeb. I'm Brazilian. I don't think you understand. I don't think you understand how well I know all this.
I'd say you always had quite a corruption.
I mean, yeah, that's true. Ever since we were founded, it was just all corruption. That's why there was a fucking dictatorship in 50s, 60s to 80s.
People still don't realize that the Brexit referendum, the 2019 election, and the Scottish independence election literally had Russian meddling. Like, confirmation. There is actual evidence. There's a whole report, as I keep referencing the Russia report, and no one knows this, and no one has spoken about it. Meanwhile, Russia's invaded Ukraine.
But it's fine. The Russians are my G's. I really don't understand why right-wing people were like, yeah, no, Russia, let's go. Because, like, why would you support Russia? I thought you hated, like, socialism and all that. And, like, I really don't understand.
Literally, the Russia report outlines we are far behind them, and they are a serious threat. And there was, like, one day of headlines. One day. That was it. And I'm like, what in the shit am I witnessing? And it's because
Apathy is a
Russia
tragedy and boredom is a crime.
Well, the reason why is because Tories have a lot of donators, and a lot of them are from wealthy countries and wealthy individuals, and a lot of them are in China, Russia, and sorts. So obviously they're not going to tread on their toes. They're going to try and bury things. To put it this way, British politics is murky waters because the fact we allow politicians to get donations for their party to increase their power, that should never be allowed. But we're fucked. I think Jolly will agree with every word on that. Like, there is no independent institution to oversee things. The House of Lords is corrupt. You literally select who you want in the House of Lords. It's actually fucking insane to me. So we're in a soft dictatorship. Anyone that says this is a democracy does not understand democracy. Proportional voting is closer to actual democracy than what we currently have. So anyway, British politics. I think we had
We
enough.
spiraled a little out of control there. I don't know. I think that's all we have for today, folks. I'm not entirely sure we have anything else to say. We talked a lot, even after the video. It's yeah, not the best video, not the worst video. So
Yeah, I think we covered it quite thoroughly.
yeah,
It's-
still not a fan
to
of
make clear,
drinkers.
it's still a fucking bad video. It's just not disaster.
Yeah, it's a bad video, especially when you consider the context from which Drinker's making the video.
No, you're related to Jacob Rees-Mogg. Oh no, man. Oh.
Sit and listen to his anti-Jewish and anti-poor rants. Oh my god, I was gonna
I
say
don't
that's
know how you-
amazing, but I don't think it is amazing.
Do you know who Jacob Rees-Mogg is?
Well, apparently he's anti-Jewish and anti-poor.
Let me send one gif, and you should recognize him. He's batshit insane.
Let's see.
He is literally peak Victorian era individual.
Very
Where's him?
No longer watch you
Like-
come or will my skin be alive.
him.
Too many queries. He looks like
He-
looks like a Nazi scientist.
He behaves like a Nazi. I'm not gonna lie to you, but he in Parliament was just laying there and decided to go full asleep. Generally, that's what he was doing, and he goes on about decorum and all that shit.
I don't think I know him, to be fair, but he just looks like a Nazi.
Somehow he's always around in senior positions or just below that. He's always there, and I don't know how he keeps getting into them.
Right.
Aside from the fact that I think he's just a massive bootlicker. I think that's the only way he does it, because this guy isn't electable in any fashion. Like he's literally peak out of touch, capitalist piece of shit. He's if you see photos of him, he wants to go back to the Victorian era, where he has like an estate and a bunch of slaves. I'm not exaggerating
Oh my god.
with this guy.
Oh my god, I can't believe that fucking British politics, Jesus. The horror
I wouldn't
stories I
be
could tell you about Mog.
I would be surprised if one day an investigation happens and they find him really like a neo-Nazi or something. It's like very serious crimes.
Jesus.
Jacob Rees-Mogg, man.
Well, he's
Ooh.
got my vote. Anyway, people watching, I think we're gonna leave here now. Guess we got a little political today. You could say we're going woke, even if you wanted. To be fair, we went woke a while back. But yeah, we'll catch y'all next time. The next Flash reaction coming out tomorrow. I think because last year I usually posted them on Thursdays. I think I'm gonna post them on Saturdays now, just because the first one I posted on Saturday because I was working on my video when it kind of was postponed. And I think Saturdays is just more it's just better for me in terms of like working in terms of editing and working on my own videos. It gives me like a better time management for it. So yeah, every Saturday. So you can have episode 2 for Saturday, next Saturday, episode 3 if everything goes right. It was fucking hard to get around copyright. I had to re-render the video 8 times. But it's a long one, an hour and 20 minutes. It's gonna be fun. So yeah. Think that's it. Is there anything else? Don't think so. Yeah, so that is it. We'll catch y'all next time. Yeah, goodbye.
Go Brexit.
Go
Go
Brexit.
Brexit.
Brexit.